are ready.
You want me to turn on the intros?
Thank Jim.
Good afternoon, everyone. Today is Monday, November 13th, 2017. It is 1:02 p.m. We are in the Commission chambers, and I call the Commission regular meeting to order. Present are Commissioner Hanks, Commissioner McDowell, Mayor Yates, Commissioner Carasone, Commissioner Luke, City Clerk Atkins, Deputy Clerk Pito, City Attorney Slayton, City Manager Lear, and Police Chief Kevin Vespier is also here. If you would, please make sure you put your phones on silent. Would appreciate that. And we if you can and you're able, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. And prior to that, we're going to have an invocation by Pastor Danny Chronister of Trinity United Methodist Church.
Thank you, and good afternoon. If you would bow your heads and allow me to lead you in prayer this afternoon. Father, we humbly approach you this afternoon, and we request that you would descend your blessings upon this meeting as we and all those assemble here before you today. May you bestow your blessings upon these public servants, these city officials, and these citizens as they collectively strive to accomplish the business of this community. Grant them wisdom and strength, courage, and direction. And it is, Lord, that we thank you for the freedoms that we have in this nation, that we can meet and discuss business in this community. And as we approach this festive time of Thanksgiving, Father, it's my prayer that the work of all these city officials, all those that support them, the public servants, can be recognized and respected by this community today and the days forward. And Father, I pray that you would be present today and each day by their side, and by your divine grace, guard them and keep them safe in these challenging jobs and difficult times. So bless these community servants, bless this community as they maintain the integrity of this growing city of Northport. And Father God, we ask these and all things in your precious name. Amen.
All right, just want to mention that we do have public comment period. If you'd like to make public comment, please fill out one of these yellow cards and hand it to the officer on my left. You may speak under item number 3, general public comment, about anything on the agenda, anything that's not on the agenda. If you would like to be called up when the item comes up, please make sure you put the agenda item number. Appreciate that. All right, City Manager, you do have a couple of things you wanted to mention.
Thank you, Mayor. I would like to pull items 7F and G, as I think they'd be a little premature based on the conversation we're going to have on the Road and Drainage District. Item G, we have spoken to the Water Management District as well as the contractor. The contractor is willing to hold the prices, and the Water Management District is going to give us an extension of time on the grant funding that's it's matching with. So if we could pull those 2 items, that would be great.
Okay, and that's 7F and G, and that has to do with the Spring Haven Boulevard amendment to the contracts.
Before we do that, can't we table them for another meeting and then do it after? I'm trying to find a way to actually address it today versus waiting until the next meeting.
Well, I think what
it's an attorney question, really. Can we pull it and then reconvene so that we can actually hear them and make the motion after the road and drainage? I know it's a general meeting.
So I think what I hear you're saying is that you maybe want to move it to the end of the agenda, and then you could
recess.
Right, and then reconvene following the district meeting.
That's what I'm trying to get at.
Yes,
this way it gets accomplished and we don't have to worry about bringing it back, and we might even make deadline. Okay.
We don't have a deadline, though, at this
Well,
time.
There was just the funding deadline for the water
But
management
that's been
district,
extended.
and that we have an extension on.
Till when?
We haven't gotten a formal timeline on it yet, but the plan, if we pulled it, it would most likely to come back at the next commission meeting or the first one in December. So we would at least have that. That's 30 days. So I don't think the time extension will be an issue. But if you guys want to move it to the end after the Springhaven, at which point we could, at that point, if you feel like, depending on what happens at the Road and Drainage District, not address them tonight, you could always table them or end them at that point in time too.
I guess my concern is, and I'll just speak to the commissioners, is that it's already going to take so very long to get this accomplished. And I just want to see us take action so that it gets moving, because, everything works backwards in government for some reason. And to put another 30 days is just heartbreaking, because it really needs to get done.
So conservatively, and I know, Vice Mayor, that's where you're coming from, conservatively, rather than pulling it completely off the agenda, what the recommendation would be is to take 7F and G, move it to the very end of this meeting. And if we get to that prior to the district meeting starting, then we will actually take a recess and then reconvene.
Exactly.
So all we have to do is approve the agenda, moving those items, and we'll deal with it when they come up.
Mm-hmm.
Are there any other changes on the agenda? If not, I'll entertain a motion to move items number 7F and G to the end of the meeting prior to public comment.
So moved.
Number 8.
So moved.
Second.
Motion moved by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Vice Mayor. All right. Can we have the voting screen? We don't have it. Now we have it. And clear that? All right, please vote. And that is approved 5-0. All right, so that takes us to item number 2. This is for announcements, City A and B, City Clerk.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Microphone was far away. The current vacancies are as follows. The following boards and committees: the Art Advisory Board, Audit Committee, Beautification and Tree Scenic Highway Committee, Charter Review Advisory Board, Citizens Tax Oversight Committee, Community Economic Development Advisory Board, Municipal Police Officers Pension Board of Trustees, Parks and Rec Advisory Board, and Public Utilities Advisory Board. We also have some upcoming expirations for the following boards. They are as follows: the Firefighters Pension Board of Trustees for a member elected by other firefighter members, Charter Review Advisory Board, Community Economic Development Advisory Board, Public Utility Advisory Board, and Zoning Board of Appeals. If you need any more information, please contact the City Clerk's office. Thank you.
Thank you, City Clerk. All right, and do we have any applicants for our advisory boards that are with us today? Okay. Seeing none, we're going to move on to the public comment, item number 3. And so what I'll do is call a couple of names. If you would, just kind of come up to the podium here and line up there. First one we have is Chuck Wilson, followed by Marie Wiley, and followed by Frank Tentor-Romano. Probably messed that up. Come on up, sir. And please state your name for the record.
My name is Chuck Wilson. I reside at 5242 Sabrina Terrace here in Northport. Good afternoon, Mayor Yates and the commissioners. I am here today to once again concerning the house at 5278 Sabrina Terrace. I would like to say in the last few months that Chief Vespia and his department have really stepped up their help. Much headway has been made into making this area safe, again, thanks to them. When the building department finally boarded up the house near the end of September, it was again a major help to the neighborhood. However, this past Wednesday, once again we had a break-in at the property. Even though the 4 were caught on the property, is my understanding no charges will be filed because it is a victimless crime. I hate to inform the city of Northport, but there's no such thing as a victimless crime. The people who live around this house are all victims to the lawlessness that has gone on at 5278 Sabrina for the past 2 years. The city has clearly marked this property as no trespass and no entry. No personnel from the city were present, and there was no permission granted to enter. Are the notices that you print those notices, are the paper that you print those notices on, is that paper worth anything? I'm here today to call for Northport PD to arrest and charge those 4 individuals with breaking and entry, which they clearly did by taking a generator and a Sawzall and cutting open the plywood covering that the city installed and entering the home. I'm also asking the city to secure the property properly once again. On last Thursday, in my phone conversation with Rick Hopkins, he told me that he would call the people who broke in to come fix it. Since when does the city call a criminal and ask them to please come and repair the damage that you did? I'm sorry, Mr. Hopkins, but get out there and get it fixed. It's called your job. Over the weekend, someone used the opening created on Wednesday to gain entry once again to the property. I noticed this just before I came. I have a photograph of the back of the house. The property is not secure. In an October 20th letter from the city, the neighborhood was notified by Mr. Hopkins that the house could be demolished any time in the next 90 days. I say the nearly 2 years that we put up with this mess is enough. Knock it down, and knock it down first thing in the morning. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Mr. Lear, do you have any?
Yes, we'll have staff get with them again.
Thank you.
Could you please keep us updated too on that?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
All right. Marie Wiley?
Yeah, my name's Marie Wiley. We moved into Grand Paradiso at the end of May, moved from Michigan. And we are very opposed to our address being changed to a Northport address. When we came first down here in March to look at homes, we directly looked at houses that were listed in Venice, which brought us into Grand Paradiso. We first looked at a used home. It didn't work out for us, which then led us to Sam Rogers, the builder there, and we purchased a new spec home there. I don't think it's fair that you have all these people that have purchased into Grand Paradiso with the intention that it would stay Venice, or not even the intention, what would I say, is we had no clue that it would be changed to a Northport address. We plead with you, we plead that you please leave things as alone. For this is the reason why we moved there. We wanted to have that Venice status address. And also, the letter from Deborah Miller from RE/MAX, she hit the nail right on the head with her comments and how this could affect sales for Lennar, Sam Rogers in that area. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. I'll try it twice again. Mr. Frank
Romano, you said it correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. My address is 20138 Passaggio Drive in Grand Paradiso, and I've been a resident of Grand Paradiso since 2010 when I bought my home. I was told even back then from the post office personnel that eventually we're going to have to come up with another name, or because it's going to get a whole new zip code once the population gets up. So I realize that we have to come up with another name. I think that you would have overwhelming support by all the members, the homeowners in Grand Paradiso and Island Walk, if the new name associated with the new zip code would be, because I believe that there's a West Villages out on the East Coast. So rather than be ambiguous for the post office, because they're going to make the final decision, I believe. But if you, as our representatives, have a word, I would suggest that you give the name Southwest Villages, Florida, whatever the zip code is. That would be not so ambiguous with the possibility of a West Villages address over on the East Coast of Florida. That said, I think you'll have a lot more people happy about not having it named Northport in our address, because whether we want to admit it or not, there are parts of Northport that have a negative connotation to somebody, let's say, from Venice. So rather than have everybody who thought they were in Venice, which they're not, they're really in Northport, but we're in the West Villages. We're on the outer ring of Northport. So why don't you keep it that way? We know we're in Northport. Everybody knows it. But to make us happy as homeowners and not feel like we're going to get less for our value on our home, I believe the good name chosen would be Southwest Villages, Florida, and then whatever the zip code. Thank you for your time, and God bless America. Okay, bye-bye.
Thank you. Victor Dobrin, Michael Sapat, followed by Joan San Luin.
Good afternoon. Victor Dobrin, 20327 Real Circle, Gran Paradiso. Thank you for the opportunity. This change was brought to us yesterday in the tumultuous discussion the financial accountability team had on this subject. Documents from 2009 and 10 were brought, which are very troublesome. Statements made by certain commissioners present today here. So I want to make it sure that that attitude is being diminished, and try to understand why these people, in less than 30 hours, show support in 100 numbers. The counter petition which was started has ill-intended means and misinformation. So I will not go there. But I want to let you know that we are assessed on average $1,700 to build and maintain every year our infrastructure. You get on average $1,000 from me for services I do not get. I pay for the water, I pay for the sewer. The city was turned over the water lines, the sewer lines. We maintain our roads. We built our roads. We maintain our ponds, drainage, and everything. You should consider, it's your duty of your government, of the people, for the people, to consider that and not incite citizen against citizen, resident against resident. That behavior should stop today and retract all those actions. You are not going to be successful because your postal service has regulation how this change to proceed. What did you gain by this? Power? What do you want to do? These people who paid from their savings a premium for their house, they chose younger family for a school, they want to belong to their children. These are choices that we, in a free society, we can make. This reminds me about the despotical dictatorship I lived under more than half of my life. This behavior should not be condoned by residents and by the other commissioners. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Okay. That'll do it for the day. Thank you. Appreciate it. Michael Seapot, followed by Joan San Luin.
Thank you for the opportunity to speak. I come at it from a little different perspective than some of the people.
Please state your name for the record.
I'm sorry, my name is Mike Sepo. I live at 2315 Real Circle, Gran Paradiso, Northport. I come at it from a little different perspective than some of the folks here. I've been a real estate broker for 30 years. I've been through this before with other communities. I also own one of the number one real estate offices in the Chicago metropolitan area. This type of thing, as far as people getting mail from different post offices, is common. In fact, if you look at zip code information from the post office, well over 12 to 14 million people on estimate get their mail from different zip codes. I myself identify myself as when I purchase something or whatever, and I always get the question, "Are you from Venice?" I go, "I am Northport, Venice mailing address." That's very common. In fact, if you go right up the road here to Port Charlotte and everything, they do the same thing. I don't really have a concern about it. I think you're wasting your time only because even if you can show the post office rationale and justification, which you will not be able to do, you still will need a minimum of 50 plus one person percentage for it to go through. Because it specifically states that unless you get 50% plus one person, it won't go through. So I don't know why you're wasting your time on the thing. But and again, like I said, I've been through this many times over 30 years, and I've never, ever seen a post office change unless it directly benefited the people there. Thank you.
Thank you. Come on, please, folks. No more, please. Thank you. Joan San Luis.
Reset that clock, please.
Yes, we will. You have 3 minutes.
Change of topic. Hello, my name is Joan Heron San Luis. I live in Northport. I'm here today regarding the extension of Springhaven Drive and the adverse impact of the extension on wildlife that access approximately 90 acres of Little Salt Spring Preserve. The extension of the road will limit the animals' ability to travel freely. Now, off cuff, when it was suggested 10 minutes ago to move item F7, F, and G to the end, if I was the city manager, I would have suggested to the commission that items 7, F, and G are affected by an item in the 501 meeting. That item was entitled, if it's still there, it's not now, hiring a wildlife expert for the Springhaven Drive Extension Project, and that if the commission desires to do that, is going to impact the environmental aspects of the roadway and affect the other contracts. So that seems cart before the horse. We have an extremely unique situation here. This wildlife corridor has been used by animals to get back and forth between Little Salt Spring Preserve and the Myakkahatchee Creek for millennia. The proposed road extension will completely encircle the preserve, thus dictating the need for a wildlife crossing. The commission and the city staff are to be complimented for their past actions regarding wildlife corridor as written by the city manager, quote, "Commission directed staff to review the issue and develop options to address stated concerns," end quote. And the staff did develop options, but things developed and it got more complicated. To paraphrase what the city manager wrote in the meeting details document for the 501 meeting, during the permitting process with SwiftBud, the need for modifications to the current plans and contracts came to light due to requirements for stormwater management. In addition to this being an extremely unique situation, it's an extremely complex situation with many moving parts that cannot be identified in a 3-minute speech. To highlight a few of the parts, what size box culvert is best? Is a box culvert best? Will a deer crawl through a tunnel that it cannot stand up in? I was in meetings when that was discussed. In my opinion, a deer is not going to go down there and scrunch, but get an expert to tell you. Is a 4x5 or 5x7 box culvert sufficient? Does a culvert dictate the need for a fence to funnel animals into the culvert? If fencing is needed, what's the best height and length of the fence? What about deer and fencing? What about gopher tortoises and no funnel fencing? What about public safety with funnel fencing? And that, I don't even go into the hardscape stuff with road curbing and all that. That's all in the mix. The city, as of now, has no environmental wildlife consultant on this project. The reason being it may not have been previously apparent that one was needed. It's now apparent that one is needed. I strongly urge this commission to direct staff to pursue hiring an independent third-party expert. Of course, there are legal requirements for endangered species. Given this unique situation, my hope is that this commission will go beyond mandatory requirements and obtain additional expertise regarding the best possible outcome for the animals, in danger or not. Also, it would be very helpful to this commission, I think, to be able to tell the public that they and the staff are basing their decisions on expert input.
Thank you, Ms.
Thank you for your time. Oh, I'm up. Oh, thank you for your time. Thank you for your service.
Thank you very much. Lowry Reed? And just for clarification, those items were moved to the end of the agenda to allow us to have that other conversation at the 501 meeting. Then we can go back if necessary and do anything. So I just wanted to make sure that was clear. So,
my name is Lowry Reed. I'm a resident of 2666 Barry Road. And Mayor, I think you dealt partly with what I was worried about. I had thought when the F and G, particularly the F, got pulled and was anticipated to be on the agenda December 12th or so. That was a good move in that it would allow, if you choose, to hire a conservation consultant on that box culvert, because it is extremely complex and emotions are intense and there's no consensus, and so almost any action you take as far as deciding about what to do at that wildlife crossing, there's going to be intense objections. And I think the only way you can really respond positively is saying we're following the guidelines of our wildlife consultant. I think I'm partially responsible for this delay. There was a meeting on July 1 with Public Works, the Director of Planning for the high school, et cetera. And at that, I listened on the telephone. I was up in Michigan. There were notes afterwards by Ben, and I missed them. I didn't realize that there was a perception that there was a consensus that no fencing was necessary. All the documents I've read, you need to have funnel fencing in order to have a good probability that the box culvert will work as an animal. And I'm just going to stop because Joan did a wonderful job in laying it out. But am I assured that there will be, before you vote on the amendment 2, you will have had the you have had the input of a conservation consultant?
Was that it then?
Yeah.
Okay. Yes. So again, what we're going to do is what we did allows us to have that conversation at the subsequent meeting first about hiring of a consultant, and then we will pick back those items up for discussion. Yes, but we'll get there. We will get there and have the consultant conversation first. That's going to set the stage for whatever we do subsequently. So I just want to assure you we're going to have the conversation
so
first.
If you vote yes to have a consultant, will there be time between?
That's going to be the conversation that we're going to have when we talk about the hiring of the consultant.
Thank you.
Thank you. I understand your concerns. All right, I do not have any other public comment cards for this period of the public comment. So I have some that have numbers next to them, so we'll call you up for those numbers when they do come up. All right, that moves us on to item number 4. This is for the election of the mayor and the vice mayor, city clerk. Did you have something?
No, ma'am.
Okay.
I think I laid it all out for you on your
All right.
discussion sheet.
Okay. So every year the city commission is required to elect a new mayor and a new vice mayor. Mayor and vice mayor can't serve more than can't serve 2 consecutive years. So therefore we are going to have the election for the mayor position, and then once we do that, then the new mayor will take over and subsequently do the vice mayor and the rest of the meeting. So what I'll do is open up the nominations for the position of the mayor. Commissioner Hanks.
I'd like to nominate the Vice Mayor, Carson.
I'll second that.
Okay, do I have any other nominations? Okay, so I'll entertain a motion to close the nominations.
I'll move.
Second.
Motion by Commissioner Hanks to close the nominations, seconded by Commissioner McDowell. So please vote on that. And that is unanimous. And so with unanimously there being a nomination for Vice Mayor Carasone, Vice Mayor Carasone, all in support for Vice Mayor Carasone as mayor. Say aye.
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 And that is unanimous, and congratulations, Vice Mayor Carasone.
Thank you.
Mayor Yates, thank you.
Thank you very much for your service, Mayor.
Thank you. Appreciate that. So now we're going to move or switch chairs. We'll just switch chairs, and it's all yours, Mayor Carasone.
I just got settled. Okay.
Since we have so many, Mayor, since we have so many people in the audience, can we explain what a mayor is to
Yeah.
our city?
That's a great idea. And I don't know if this is a blessing or a curse for the rest of y'all, because I'm not going to, like Mayor Yates did.
As long as we all get to see.
Exactly. I mean, the mayor is really just a title. It is essentially that you run the meetings. It doesn't mean any more than you are a commissioner who runs the meetings. It's not any other power, any other duty, other than being the person to make sure that all the ducks are in a row and that the meetings go well. So just to
And
make
sign
that
all the
clear.
documents.
Sign all the
And sign
documents.
all the documents and make sure the minutes are correct. And we are switching chairs when this is done.
Thank you.
And so it really, while I am completely honored, thank you very much for nominating me. That was very surprising, and I hope that I can do a tenth of the job that Mayor Yates has done. Thank you.
Thank you. So, Mayor?
So I guess
All
I
yours.
gotta actually,
Well, now it's
thanks.
back on you
This
again.
is great, awesome. Okay, so now we need a motion for the vice mayor.
I move to place past Mayor Yates in as vice mayor.
Can we do that?
was
Right,
done-
there's nothing in the charter that,
It was done in
Yeah.
2016.
I'll second that.
is there anyone else with any other motions?
Did you want to weigh in on the attorney, or are you good?
No, I believe you. Okay, so, huh?
We'll just let her defend it.
Yeah. Okay, so if there are no other motion on the floor for a nominee, so we will go ahead and call the vote. Well, I guess we should ask Vice Mayor, huh?
You also get a motion to close the nominations.
Okay, so, well, first, let's ask ex-mayor.
I didn't give
Mayor
you a
Yates.
choice.
Yeah, right? Would you be the vice mayor again?
I'd be honored.
Okay. All right, so now we can close the nominations.
I move we close nominations.
We need a second.
Second.
All right, so it's been moved and seconded to close the nominations. Can we get the voting? And that passes unanimously. So now we'll go ahead and, we had a motion and a second on the nomination itself.
Yes, and oh, no, that's okay. You can see if there are any other nominations.
I already did
There
that.
weren't, so you close, so she.
So we're
gets it.
good. Okay. So there, you didn't even have to vote on that.
You can just do like she did and just ask
Okay.
if everybody.
Thanks. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Awesome. There you go.
Thank you
Good to
very
go.
much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Good
Good luck, Mayor. Both of you, former and current,
times.
vice and current.
All right, so now that I had absolutely no knowledge of doing this, we need to go downstairs, right?
Right.
So let's all go downstairs.
This is turning out fun already.
I'll switch chairs.
So what we do every year is when we go ahead and nominate the mayor, we also give our previous mayor a plaque. And this is presented to Linda Yates, Mayor, in recognition of your exceptional leadership and devoted service, City of Northport 2016 to 2017. We'll go down, can we, as a commission, speak to you first, and then we'll let you speak at the end? Oh, please. Really, I want to say what an honor it has been to serve with you as the mayor. You have really shown this professionalism that the city has really needed in a long time. And you have really set that bar pretty high, so it's really going to stink for me. So.
Vice Mayor Yates, thank you very much for your service as our mayor and for being the guide for us new commissioners. Thank you very much. I do appreciate everything that you have taught me as you are mayor and now vice mayor.
Yes, thank you. I have a hard time already calling you guys by like your titles because on a personal level, I know you as Linda. But I do want to thank you so much because you made the process up here very easy. You give us the opportunity to make the mistakes, knowing that, my very first motion, nobody would even second it. And I'm telling you, that is heartbreaking. No, that is heartbreaking. You're like, nobody cares about what I care about. Nobody likes me. But you allow that process to take place. And because of that, it really sped up the curve for our learning process up here. So I want to thank you very much on a personal level. Thank you so much on a business level. I really appreciate everything that you've done.
The leadership is just unmatched and very muchly appreciated. You tackled 3 definitely newbies. I mean, I'm only 6 months into this myself, so I'm the infant. She's past commission, so there was a huge learning curve getting her to a place too. So you, as a leader, dealt with 4 newbies, and you did it with excellence. As Commissioner Hanks said, you allowed us to make the mistakes, you taught us, you nudged us, but you not one time held your knowledge and your position to a height that was above us. You included us into everything. You made us a part. And that's a true leader, is making other leaders. And you did that. You taught us so much. I'll be eternally grateful for the example that you have shown. And thank you.
Thank you all, and I consider you.
The mic's going dead, and I have a very low voice.
Now it's back. Okay. You got another one?
Switch it out.
That's just an example of technicalities we've dealt with for the past year. But yeah. But I truly want to thank you. I mean, I'm honored to have had the opportunity to be mayor and serve the community, serve all of you. And always felt, like I said, we are a team. We're all equal. We all are commissioners. Good luck with the phone calls that you're the mayor, you can fix everything.
I know, right?
And, it's been a pleasure to really communicate with the public and help them along, too, over this past year. We have dealt with a lot as a city, a lot of positive things. And I always look at everything as maybe a challenge, but there's always a positive end goal. And working together toward that has really been a great opportunity. You all hit the ground running. You did. And in November, you really showed that, rolled up the sleeves. We had very long meetings with only 4 of us on the board and getting us to get stuff done, because with 4 people, you have to have a compromise. You have to come to the middle. Of course, the 5th, Commissioner Luke, you made it a little bit easier, cutting down the times on some of these things because, with 5 people, it's different. So we dealt through a lot, but I appreciate the camaraderie, the professionalism of all of you, of our charter officers, and really over the past year, the leadership is there for this community, and the community has been so engaged over the last year, even the folks coming here today. I will tell you, your issue is very important to us. We're going to have that conversation. We're going to probably clarify a lot of misunderstandings that are out there. But with the Sunshine Law, we don't have the opportunity to have any conversation until you see something on an agenda. Hopefully there'll be some clarity to the issue as we get to that later on. So thank you all for your service as well and working together. Really enjoyed it. Looking forward to the next year, and thank you for the Vice Mayor. I'd be happy to do that.
already done.
Let's go ahead and move into item 5A. And city manager?
Thank you, Mayor.
Would you like me to read it by title only?
Yeah, I guess that would be helpful, right? I'm getting there. It'll take me a couple meetings. City clerk to read by ordinance by title only. Can we get a record?
Ordinance number 2017-01. An ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, amending the code of the City of Northport, Chapter 16, Human Rights, to add genetic information, handicap, creed, ancestry, and veteran status, and to clarify terms therein by amending Section 16.01, Purpose and Intent, and Section 16.02, Definitions, providing findings, providing for conflicts, providing for severability, providing for coding of amendments, and providing for an effective date. Thank you.
Oh, boy. Thank you. Now, city manager.
Thank you, Mayor. There were two changes made between first and second reading, or two requested by the commission at the last reading. Other than that, this is the same ordinance that was done last time. If you have questions about the specific changes, the city attorney made those, and she can certainly address those for you. Otherwise, I'll turn it back to you.
Thank you. Do we have any questions, folks, on this ordinance?
Do we have any public comment?
We do not have any public comment on 5A, correct, Vice Mayor?
Correct.
Nope, wait,
Oh, wait, we do.
We have one. Peter Emhoff? Emhoff? Emhoff?
Got it right.
That is amazing, Peter, that I got it right. Thanks. Good catch there.
Thank you, Madam Mayor, Madam Vice Mayor. Congratulations on your elections. I have been here from the beginning on this ordinance, so I'm not going to waste the commission's time because I know we have a lot of other topics that are going on today. My only concern, and I discussed it briefly after the last commission meeting with commissioners in private, was the issue of limiting the sexual orientation definitions to just homosexuality, heterosexuality, and bisexuality. There are more definitions and there are more categories than just those three. And so my only concern that I wanted to publicly lodge today was that this could be interpreted as only protecting those groups and not protecting the wider community. In terms of the gender expression and gender identity section, I do believe that that does include genderqueer, intersex, and other groups through the current language. So I do not have an issue with that section. But I just wanted to raise some concerns about the sexual orientation, so it's not to be construed as only protecting those three classes. So thank you very much.
Thank you. Commissioner Luke?
Yeah, I did bring that forward too. I know you and I conversed just briefly. I didn't get any follow-up or backup material, but I did bring it up to our attorney, that particular section. And I'm wondering if we could allow the attorney to explain why that wasn't placed within, I believe it was the fourth,
One of the sections, yeah.
right, the last section. So maybe she can speak to that, because I wanted to make sure it was covered also, that all aspects were, and I was assured that the way it is written, like precedent type of stuff, you know, the way it goes through the law in that the way it's written here is the way that it should be followed. So maybe the attorney can give you a little more surety. Yeah.
City Attorney?
Thank you, Mayor. Commissioner Luke, what we had discussed was the placement of the phrase transgender status in the grouping with gender identity versus within sexual orientation. I have not looked at the issue regarding any exclusiveness of the definition of sexual orientation outside of heterosexual, homosexual, or bisexual as drafted in the current draft of the ordinance. With respect to transgender status, it is appropriately included in gender identity. That's how the EEOC and the federal case law is considering transgender status to be protected under gender identity as part of sex-based discrimination.
Is that clarified a little for you, Peter? Thank you.
Thank you for clarifying that. Do we have a motion?
Yes, Mayor. I'd like to make a motion to approve ordinance number 2017-01.
Second.
So that's been moved by Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Is there any other conversation?
I just would like to say thank you very much. This was a long time coming. It started as something very simple of including our veterans, evolved, disevolved, I don't know if that's even a word, and where we are today. So thank you very much. I think we have a very encompassing human rights ordinance that fits our city's diversity. So thank you very much, Commission.
Commissioner Luke, as a second. Did you have anything?
No, I'm just very proud of the ordinance, and I wish the United States would even have things like this for protection of all people. We're all equal. Thank you.
Commissioner Hanks?
Yeah, I'm gonna vote for it. Even though I do believe that the ordinance in itself is just going to convolute what we have, and we can kind of see that it makes it. We just keep adding to things, and then it just kind of makes it confusing what actually is this. And I don't know that our ordinance is really going to hold any true power over the state and the federal and the Supreme Court or anything like that. But I want it to be known that I do believe nobody should be discriminated against for any real reason. So for that, I'm going to vote for it.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, I just wanted to say thank you to Commissioner McDowell, because, putting this on there, it was very unsettling that there were things that weren't included that certainly are a part of the federal and the state, and now we have that, and I just sincerely appreciate you bringing this forward, and then how we put it together and ended up with what we have now, so fully support that.
Okay. And I will ditto all that has been said here. Thank you, Commissioner McDowell, for actually getting this off of our to-do list.
Yeah. You'll notice it's 01.
Yeah.
So this has been a long time
It's been a long time.
So we had lots of things happening, but it's done. And that's the most important thing. We are light years ahead of the federal and even our state. So Northport again.
That's Northport.
And
Yep.
Northport
So-
proves itself again.
City Clerk?
Yes, ma'am.
We're going to go ahead and vote.
And I'm me and you're me.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah,
And that
you're-
is
you're-
unanimous.
I just
Thank
haven't
you.
had a chance to switch up.
Oh, it's okay. We're going to take a break after, when we get to a certain point. I want to get as much done as we can. Now we need a motion to read ordinance number 2017-41 by title only.
So moved.
Second?
Okay, that's been moved by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner McDowell. Is there any conversation? No, seeing none. Let's go ahead and vote. That is approved unanimously. City Clerk?
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Ordinance number 2017-41, an ordinance of the City of Northport, Florida, amending the non-district budget fiscal year 2016-2017 by providing for changes identified in Exhibit A, providing for severability, providing for conflicts, and providing an effective date. Thank you.
And I believe this is on for City Manager. You're up.
Thank you, Mayor. At the last set of district meetings that you had, there were budget amendments mostly related to fleet services and outsourcing that were done to those districts. The way our city works is the other departments pay fleet to provide these services. If they're outsourced, fleet then outsources them. So it's a revenue to fleet and an expense to fleet as well, or expenditure. So as a result of the districts needing the budget amendment, fleet therefore also needs the budget amendment because they had the expenditures where the money actually went out, but they are not using fund balance. They're actually using the revenue that they receive from the other departments. So this is for last fiscal year to true them up.
I don't know who was here as finance director for this little. Is there anybody with any questions? I don't believe there was any. Commissioner Yates, or Vice Mayor now? I'll get it.
We'll get it eventually. Just one thing, as with the other ordinances that we did have on this, is this amount of money that's going towards the previous year's budget. We are going to get with FEMA and be putting in for the, hopefully the payback on that.
Sure. Any items that were related to the storm, which all the departments experienced, yes, we are submitting with FEMA. I have another meeting again this week related to that, and our emergency manager had a meeting this morning related to it as well.
All right. Okay. Just wanted it out there so the public is aware that we'll hopefully get that.
Excellent. Okay, so do we have a motion?
Move to continue ordinance number 2017-41 to the November 28th, 17 Commission regular meeting for second reading.
Second.
Seconded by Vice Mayor. Okay, so that's been moved by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Vice Mayor Yates. Is there any comments?
No.
Comments? No. If we can have the voting screen, and let's go ahead and vote.
And can you please tell me, are y'all correct now? I believe I corrected it.
Don't know. Didn't pay attention.
It's
to that.
unanimous. We know that. Okay, go ahead with the question screen, the comment screen. Oh, comment. Yep, we're good. Thank you. So now let's go ahead and take a 4-minute break to get, oh, you already did it. All right, so you don't need a break now, right? Okay, now we're on to item C, which is quasi-judicial. So the city clerk, can you swear in those wishing to testify?
Anyone who wishes to speak on item 5C and provide testimony, please stand and raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear or affirm that the testimony you're about to give today is true and accurate to the best of your knowledge under penalty of perjury, so help you God? Thank you.
Okay, city manager?
Thank you, Mayor. This is quasi-judicial, as you just said, related to a plat change up in Grand Paradiso. I'll bring planning staff down to do their side, and the petitioner, I believe, is ready to go.
Okay, and I failed to ask, has anyone had any ex parte communications on this?
No.
Can we go down the line? Yes or no?
Yes, I did. I met during agenda briefing and discussed it, and also I met with staff.
Thank you. Vice Mayor?
No.
Commissioner Luke? No? Okay. Just for the record. We go ahead and have staff present.
Actually, the petitioner is ready to present their side.
Thank you. And please state your name for the record.
Good afternoon. My name is Dean Paquette with Kimley Horn Associates. I'm the engineer of record for Grand Paradiso. I've been on the project since its inception. I've been in front of this commission several times on previous plats and other items. So what we have today is again, another plat as this development gets developed in phases. This is a plat that contains 140 units. It is half or about half of a phase that was previously approved with respect to the infrastructure and other plans. So it's all of this has been previously approved. Again, we're here with just the second part of the plat. It's a townhome product, so they are attached units, with some of the units having zero lot line and so forth. Is there maybe for context, maybe show where this phase is? So this is considered, I believe, 5B. And 5B is located in the yellow section, which is the southeast corner of the development. It has internal access, so everything goes out into Renaissance Boulevard and it exits out either on 41 or West Villages Parkway. Like I said, everything else has been previously approved. Just here presenting the plat. If you have any specific questions, I'd be more than happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Commission, do we have any questions? Nope. No? Wow. Okay. So then, can we have a motion?
Do you want staff?
Well, I think if you have no questions, then does staff have to present their side?
Yeah, oh, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I mean, how does
Yes,
the-
Mayor,
'cause the code's
pursuant.
changed.
Yes, and we can, I have a good little cheat sheet I'll bring you before the next meeting. Yes, ma'am, pursuant to the quasi judicial proceedings and the code currently, yes, ma'am, staff would now make a presentation.
Okay.
And then we'd have the public comment portion if there is any, and then the, any questions from the commissioners. And then finally, the applicant would have an opportunity to make a closing statement if he so wished.
Okay, so staff, did you want to make your presentation? Not that you have a choice, apparently.
Thank you, Commissioners. For the record, Sherry Willette Grondin, Neighborhood Development Services. I have been sworn. Staff concurs with the applicant of the location of the plat. It is part of Townhomes 1B. In 2014, the subdivision and infrastructure plans for the project was approved, which consisted of 252 town units. 112 were approved in 2014 under plat Townhomes 1A. This is 1B. The plat is consistent with Florida Statutes Chapter 177, the ULDC Chapter 37. The city surveyor has reviewed the plat in addition for consistency with Florida statutes. This item was presented to the Planning and Zoning Advisory Board on October 19th. The board voted unanimously in approval of the plat, and there were no issues raised. Staff is asking that the commission would approve plat number PLF 17-130, the Townhomes 1B plat.
Thank you. Okay, so does the applicant have any closing comments? Presentation?
No, again, just I concur with staff. We're just asking for the approval of this plat that's in front of you. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. So is there
Ready
any
for a
public
motion?
comment?
No.
No.
Ready
Anything
for a
else?
motion?
Move to approve petition number PLF 17-130, approval for the Grand Paradiso Townhomes 1-B final plat, replat.
Second.
Okay, so that has been moved by Commissioner Luke, seconded by Commissioner McDowell. Is there any other comments?
No, ma'am.
Seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. And that is unanimous. We'll move on to general business. Thank you, sir. 6A, discussion and possible action regarding approval of the 2018 special meeting schedule. And I believe this is under the clerk.
Yes, ma'am. I have provided you with a schedule if the commission has any questions or if any changes that they would like. The only thing there was one thing I did want to call your attention to. Hold on just one moment, please. You went a little quick for me.
Sorry.
That's okay. Okay, on the meeting schedule, I was just going to, this is for the special meeting, so this is the ones that are on the Thursdays. The only thing of note is that there is a Jewish holiday that starts at sundown, but that typically shouldn't affect these meetings because they're typically done before sundown. We just like to point that out.
Does anyone see any conflicts between the league dates? I don't think I have any of the league dates.
Not on the special meeting days. We didn't see any. On the commission regular meeting, the next agenda, or a couple of items from now,
Right.
there were some dates that we pointed out.
Okay. Thank you. Commissioner McDowell.
While most of our meetings for this special meeting is over by sundown, I think maybe we should just change the date to be cognizant of our Jewish citizens. We don't want to take a chance that they are not going to be able to attend the meeting. So I would like to see if the commission would be amenable to having it February 28th, which is on a Wednesday at 4 o'clock.
And that's for the March meeting?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
So we would have one on February 1st and February 28th?
Correct, because we're not going to have one then in March. because of the Jewish holiday on that first Thursday of the month? Or do we want to just skip March entirely?
Or you could move it to the second Thursday in
Do that too. Second Thursday is March 8th.
Any, Commissioner Luke?
I'd rather see it stay on the date that it is on the calendar right here. Those meetings are usually typically done. It's a proclamation meeting, and they're usually done by 4:35 at the latest. So I would like to see it stay where it's at for continuity.
City Manager?
And I'll ask forgiveness for anybody that knows a lot more about this holiday than I do, because I don't. But in Googling it, it starts on the evening before, actually the 28th, and ends at sundown on the 1st. So like I say, I have no knowledge of what the rules are. Just want to make sure that, because this says it starts at sundown, but it actually ends at sundown on March 1st.
That makes a difference if it
Yeah, it
ends at
does.
sundown.
So it starts at
So that
sundown.
means they would
It
not.
starts at sundown on the 28th and ends at sundown on the 1st.
So then I think it would be safe for us to just go ahead and skip March 1st. This is the special recognition meeting,
Right.
correct?
We can always add them to another meeting if we have overwhelming amount of proclamations.
Or like I said, just move it to another
Move it
date,
to the
like a
8th, the
week
following
later.
week.
Yeah, what I was maybe wanting to suggest is move it to the Friday, the 2nd. It's one day,
Friday,
and
oh, this,
yeah.
oh, no.
The only reason why I'm saying that is because we do have proclamations that, for that month.
Exactly.
And some of them might fall within that first week, bumping it out. Plus, we've got a lot of items coming up, and I think it would cause some issues for us to not have that meeting.
I would agree with that suggestion.
Well, I can't agree with a Friday,
How
so,
about March 8th?
Why?
That's a Thursday.
because I'm busy on Fridays, but yeah, I can do March 8th.
That's a Thursday.
It's a Thursday, March 8th.
Yeah.
It's just 1 week. Instead of the first Thursday of the month, it'd be the second Thursday of the month.
I can do the 8th. I think it's really about our availability.
So Thursday.
Any
the-
other commissioners have a problem on the 8th of March?
No, but the 5th is actually a day that we started saying, wait a minute, my dates are mixed up here. Flip this.
Yeah, the 5th would be the start.
First
The
Monday.
Of the first Monday setting aside for everybody, so I don't know if we just
Well,
want to maybe
well,
have that.
Well, I'll reiterate that first Monday is not a guarantee.
Right.
That's what I was promised.
I know.
No, I'm just
So
kidding.
that's why I'm okay with the 8th, because I'm
Yeah,
really
I think-
hoping we
yeah, I
don't
think the
meet
8th
on the
would be all right.
5th. Yeah.
Seems to me I have something, don't I have training or that with,
I don't have your calendar.
yeah, I'm trying to open it up and it's telling me it's incorrect.
Let me see if I can see anything on.
I have to look at I don't have the schedule that far out yet, but usually the second Thursday of the month is COG, as well as Minnesota League of Cities.
Yeah, I'm
So-
scheduled for training.
I don't
Right.
see that.
On the 8th.
Okay.
I don't see anything for the 8th.
Okay.
I think you recently did.
The second Thursday.
you do it Wednesday?
Would be the 8th, so. I-
On Wednesday, too.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't scheduled anything this far out yet.
Uh,
On Friday, so, and some Florida action days and stuff.
My training would be done by that time. I'm recalling the time being earlier. I should be done by noon, so I can be back here for it then.
Yeah,
On which
The
day?
8th.
The 7th?
The 8th.
Oh, the 8th.
Because COG and
Minnesota
Minnesota are in the morning, so we would be able to be here by 4.
4 o'clock on the
8th.
4 o'clock on the 8th?
8th is fine. Going once, going twice, folks.
Was there any other dates of a conflict?
Yeah, is there any other dates?
No,
for-
ma'am, that was the, and I apologize for having that backwards of start or finish. We try to flag any holidays like that so that we can make sure to bring it to your attention. That's the only thing I knew of. Thank you.
Okay, so now we need a motion, because I do not see any public comments, but we need a motion reflecting the change.
Approving the schedule with the one change.
Mm-hmm.
I'll make a motion to approve the special meeting schedule as presented with one change reflected for March 8th as the special meeting instead of March 1st. And the time will still be at 4 p.m.
Second.
Okay, and that's moved by Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Vice Mayor. Is there any comment, Commissioner McDowell?
No, I'm glad we're changing it because
Vice Mayor?
Nope.
Okay, anyone else? All right, we'll go ahead and vote. And that passes unanimously. All right, moving on to discussion and possible action regarding commission board and committee assignments for the year 2017-2018.
Commissioners, I do realize that you previously went over this when Commissioner Luke came on board, but I still, this is something that we do every year. So attached have been the boards have been attached for you that y'all currently serve on. If you don't want to make any changes, you can just make a motion to approve it as presented and leave it alone. Or if there's anything that, I believe there is a board that we've been asked to get a representative for and a health alliance. I believe Pete, the city, excuse me, the city manager may have some information about that. It's the community action team, and they said
Yes.
that Commissioner Moore used to previously serve on it, and they would like to have a Northport representative, Northport Commission representative.
That was in the backup, I think.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure it was too.
Or you had provided.
Email. It was in an email.
Email.
I
It was an
believe
email.
I forwarded it to you. But if the commission would like to appoint somebody to that, then I'd like to know if you would like us to add that to the list so that we can do that every year. So that way it won't fall through the cracks. Because I don't believe before it was formally part of the list, the boards and committees. Thank you.
Okay, Commissioner Yates? Oh, I'm sorry, Commissioner McDowell first.
When I saw the email, I was very interested in serving on that board for the Sarasota County Community Action. I don't know if it is appropriate for me to ask or if I have to be nominated to do something like that, but I would be willing if anybody else would like to approve that.
Can I?
Say I'm okay with where I'm at. So
Can I tag?
doing that.
Sorry, can I tag on to what she said? I mean, because that first one that she was sitting on, that Charlotte Harbor, we've kind of done away with that anyhow. So we could just, isn't that the one that, no, it's not? That one's already been removed? Okay. Good. I was just going to flop.
RPC was what was done away with
Okay.
at this point until we find out what's going on with the state and mandating.
Okay, I
in
thought we could
counties,
just swap
yeah.
in and out. All right,
Yeah, and
thanks.
the Charlotte Harbor Estuary only meets, I think, once a quarter. And the Peace River meets maybe every other month or so. So that's why I'm saying I'll jump on that one if anybody, if that's all right. Unless somebody else wants to, then.
Commissioner Yates?
Yeah, I think that'd be great, Commissioner McDowell, on that board. The other thing is the COG, Council of Governments, that's typically the mayor that would serve on that. So
Yeah, that needs.
that would be the mayor, and then normally would be the vice mayor as a backup. So, Mayor, I'd be happy to make a motion.
Well, we also need to get a backup for the CAC. While Commissioner McDowell would serve, who would be the?
I was going to recommend.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I'll back her up.
Okay, go ahead, Commissioner Yates. You said you wanted to make the motion.
Sure. So move to approve the commission, board, and committee assignments with the following changes: to appoint Commissioner McDowell to the Community Action Advisory Board, Agency Board, as the primary, and Commissioner Luke as the alternate.
Okay.
As well as the Council of Governments, to be Mayor Carrison as serving and the alternate as Vice Mayor Yates.
I'll second.
Okay, so that has been moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner McDowell. What? Do you have a question, comment?
Does MPO have to make the same changes as COG?
No.
No? Okay. Thank you.
Is there anything else? Okay, so if that's all, no other comments, look ahead, vote. And that is unanimous. Thank you. All right. Can we take a 7-minute break real quick, guys?
A real 7?
Well, let's do a whole 10, and then this way we can power through the rest of it and get it over with. How's that? Does that sound good? 10-minute.
10.
10.
10.
10. 10. Thank you.
Good job so far, Mayor.
Yeah, I mean, you don't have to do it now. Let me see here.
I emailed Corey, and the first thing he said was, "What's running?" And I told him I'd find out. These microphones are hot.
right, folks, it's 2:26. We are back. Our next agenda item is 6C, and that's discussion and possible action about our district and commission regular scheduled meetings for 2018.
I have a,
Oh, sorry, Commissioner Luke.
yeah, I'd like motion to consider brought forward in regards to 5A, which was that ordinance 217-01,
Hold on, we're going backwards.
the human ordinance.
Oh, yeah, okay.
During the break, there was a discussion so that there was more clarity as to the section that does talk about homosexual, heterosexual, and bisexual. I'm going to recommend that we consider putting in terminology that is used so it doesn't limit it, but it talks about what's the term that's used, attorney? Not limited to.
Yes, ma'am, Commissioner. If you wanted to make the definition more broad, you could make it read means of it. You could add the language. It says means a person's actual or perceived heterosexuality, homosexuality, or bisexuality. You could modify that to say means a person's actual or perceived sexuality, comma, including but not limited to.
Included but not limited to.
Are we, can you, I'm sorry, I'm trying to get caught up to speed on this.
Yeah, well, yeah, first of all, we need to have a motion to reconsider the ordinance since we already passed it. So we need that motion and we need a second for that. So, Commissioner Luke, is that your motion?
Yes, it is.
Okay, do we have a second?
Second.
I'll second.
It's been seconded by Vice Mayor. So now we can reconsider it. Well, first we should vote, huh? That would help. Anyone would comments on that? No? Let's go ahead and vote on the reconsidering of the motion. And that passes unanimously. Okay, so now, Commissioner Luke, you've said your reasoning for wanting the change, and City Attorney, you're saying just to add the text to the...
Including but not limited to.
In what exact section?
And that would be under, on page 4. Am I correct, Attorney?
Yes, ma'am. It would be on page 4 toward the end of section 3. There's a definition of sexual orientation, the second to the last definition. It means a person's actual or perceived. And I believe that the suggested language would be to include, after the word perceived, sexuality, comma, including but not limited to.
So we need a motion to approve the amendment. It would be page 4. It is at the very end of the definitions, pretty much almost the end where it talks about, well, it's not page 4. I think it's page 3, actually, guys. Where it talks about gender identity, correct?
No, ma'am. Next page. Go to the top.
Oh, yeah, it is.
Second from
Okay,
the top.
so it is page 4, second
Right.
to last paragraph where it talks sexual orientation. So we need a motion for the suggested changes.
I'm going to move that we add the phrase including but not limited to the definition of sexual orientation.
And you are approving the ordinance? Right.
Yes.
So there's been a motion to approve ordinance number 2017-1 of the Human Rights Code, amending the definition of sexual orientation to add at the end of it, including but not limited to, correct?
Mhm.
Okay, we have tons of stuff here. City Attorney first.
Yes, ma'am. I just want to clarify, it would not be at the end. And in order to make the definition read fully, you need the phrase sexuality, comma, including but not limited to.
Okay, so now that we got that clarified, before we go on for a second, Commissioner Hanks and Commissioner McDowell, let's go ahead with those.
Yeah, well, I need to understand more what this means, because what is the fluid limit? Is there a fluid limit if somebody perceives themselves? I'm trying to understand what exactly it means, because I think we're just convoluting this more and more and more, and now I'm getting confused at what we're actually trying to do.
There are other sexuality orientations other than the 3 that has been named within the public. So we're not eliminating or holding back the other perception of, how they perceive themselves or their gender orientation or any of that. Just add that phrase, including but not limited to, so you don't have a perception that somebody who's making this choice is being excluded from this particular definition. It is what was being addressed by our citizen.
Right. Yeah, no. And I guess my question is, because the definitions grow so rapidly and they're so fluid in their growth, there needs to be some
it.
Yeah, but I understand that. But my question is, God, this is going to be perceived wrong. I don't want it to be perceived wrong. Where does it end?
Yeah.
Because we do see that people are now perceiving themselves even outside of their own human race. And I'm sorry, as a business, I don't want to hire a dog, right? And please don't take me wrong when I say this, because I don't mean it like that. I just, there has to be something. There has to be some boundary.
Do you remember when this first came up and you said just leave it as includes but not limited to? And you wanted to leave it at that instead of even naming the different. Exactly, because you felt that phrase just took care of all of it. Well, instead of naming all of those different characteristics or terminologies or that, all I want to do is add includes but not limited to, so that it covers all of them. And you're not later having this come before us when somebody said, I'm this, I'm that, I'm another, there's another one being perceived. So this takes care of it so it doesn't come back again.
Right. I understand what you're trying to do. My real concern is there has to be a definition of some. I mean, there has to be, definite. I mean, because I can just perceive myself as something different now, and then how do you know it's real or not real? Or you see what I'm saying? Does this make sense? I don't know if I'm making sense, because I'm not trying to be.
You're not trying to be disrespectful.
No. Yeah, no, I'm not.
Exactly.
I just want to understand.
That's why I wanted it to end by just doing this, so it doesn't come forward again.
It leaves it open for whatever. There's no guideline to anything. Anybody can just perceive themselves as whatever they open-ended like this as anything they want. And me as a business owner, I have to be okay with that. I mean, I can't. I'm trying to hire a person, not a cat. Or I'm just saying it leaves it so open-ended. I was more inclined with the way you had it defined, even though I don't personally believe there's any scientific evidence that this is guaranteed anything. Right. But that being said, I do believe that everyone should have a right to something, as a human being. But at the same time, I mean, as a business owner, I should have rights too, that fulfill my culture and my things like that are outside of the constitutional boundaries. And I think when you said it this way, which is why I voted, I said I don't think it's going to hold any power anyways. I just think it's something we're just doing to make people feel good, and it's not going to have any real impact to it anyways. But now you're really opening it up to a place where I'm having to say, all right, I agree with anyone and everything they feel like they want to be. And as a business owner, I'm telling myself, yeah, you have to be okay with that. Well, I'm not okay with that.
Well, okay.
So help me to understand how.
Let's see what the other commissioners say.
Now I'm starting to want to change my vote.
Maybe we can get some clarification by the other commissioners' questions and concerns, that maybe we will get that ironed out, and then at the end, if not, we'll go back to debating that. But Commissioner McDowell, you're next.
Yeah, I think I need to hear from the city attorney, because what we're seeing before us doesn't show the entire ordinance. And I remember the ordinance had something in there about, I don't know what the legal term is, the ability to sue for damages, and I don't know what those damages are, but being able to sue and to, God, I wish I had.
There
the
were
whole entire-
consequences, yeah.
If you didn't follow it, and now if we're going to have under the sexual orientation, is that, and I'm not an expert at this. I don't understand the nuances of it. I'll admit I'm quite ignorant on the entire subject. I'm trying to learn it. Believe me, I'm trying. But isn't that similar to gender identity or expression? Where with this sexual orientation, I don't know, but I want this ordinance to be inclusive. But at the same time, if you have somebody that wants to rent, and you have, but not limited to, and this is going to what Commissioner Hanks was saying, that thinks that there's something outside of the realm of whatever normal is anymore. This sounds so disrespectful, and that is not the intention. I don't know what the words are.
City Attorney just put her light on. Commissioner Hanks, or did you want to leave yours on for a space saver? Or
yes.
Later on? Okay. So can we hear from City Attorney, and then we'll go to Vice Mayor, and then we'll go back around.
Thank you, Mayor. I just wanted to address Commissioner McDowell's question about the difference between gender identity and sexual orientation. So gender identity is a person's gender-related self-identity. So it's the gender that a person sees themselves or perceives themselves as being, whereas sexual orientation refers to the sex of those to whom one is sexually and romantically attracted. So one is about oneself.
Definition doesn't say that in ours, romantically attracted to.
It wouldn't be in here.
It doesn't.
It doesn't.
But that's what heterosexuality is, being attracted to the same sex, or different sex. Right. Homosexuality, same sex, bisexuality is both.
So what is this not limited to going to accomplish? I don't understand. So if you're, what if you're romantically attracted to, I don't know, an animal? I don't.
It sounds so. This is the most difficult thing to talk about.
It really is. And
especially in a public setting, on television where everybody's going, boy, we got
little. Vice Mayor Yates.
Yeah, I understand the difficulties with this because there's a lot of unknowns, and I think that's one of the things Commissioner Luke is trying to address. So sexual orientation, I mean, there's sexuality, and so we're familiar with homosexuality, heterosexual, but new terminology comes up that describes sexuality. And so what this change is trying to do, I think, is no matter what the term is that you call your sexuality, this applies to sexual orientation. So it's just trying to incorporate that it's not those three specific words, because actually that could have another word for those meanings. So I think that's what's trying to be captured here. It's not expanding upon or outside of sexual orientation.
But then you would need to put that phrase in after gender identity or under familial status. It applies to every single definition that's in here.
And I think maybe that's where the city attorney was going. So, you know, there's certain parts of human bodies that are defined in gender. With the gender, this is something different. This is sexuality and the attraction of.
But can I ask a question? So let me just get this straight, because I'll address the elephant in the room. Apparently, sexual orientation is your definition defined as what you were attracted to. What prevents this ordinance from a pedophile?
That's where I was going to go.
The law.
Okay, so I understand that the law will supersede this, but my concern is if we are putting this in here that says, you know, includes but not limited to, aren't we kind of opening it up to say it doesn't matter whether it's the law or whether it's ethical or unethical in individuals' mind? We don't care, it's okay. I see that's my concern with the way that it's worded. But in order to avoid that, you have to go back to what Commissioner Hanks's concern is, that you are going to be listing every single individual.
That's why I wanted.
So I guess that I would proffer up some sort of a included but not limited to, and then add something in there, those that are legal.
I already
don't know.
I already have an issue too, because in the definition it talks about gender identity and genetic information. What if those two offend themselves? So how do you discriminate? I mean, you discriminate one, you're discriminating against the other. If you discriminate against one, they discriminate against themselves. They could.
And
Okay. Well, let's. Do we have any other questions? Let's get that through.
City Attorney, my original question about the ability for suing is in the entire ordinance, and again, I don't know, I don't have it with me, but there is the ability to do that in the entire ordinance at some point. I don't remember what chapter it is. I can run to my office and get it if you'd like.
Yes, ma'am, it is in chapter 16, and I'm also trying to pull that up. Muni code was a little bit
Well, while
slow.
you're doing that, let's go ahead and call public comment so we can keep this moving. And then we'll come back with that answer afterwards. Public comment, round 2, Mr. Peter Imhoff. And if you'll
Thank
state
you,
your
Madam
name,
Mayor.
please.
I kind of apologize for opening this can of worms during the break.
State your name.
Peter Imhoff, I apologize.
Thanks.
I apologize again for opening this can of worms kind of during the break, but it was a concern that I stated during my public comment that if it was only left to these 3 sexual orientations, and that is all we are talking about, we are not talking about gender identity or whether or not you believe you're a bear or a cat or any of those other things. This is simply about who you are attracted to. And there are many different definitions, as the Vice Mayor stated, and we can either sit down and add all the different identities. I will gladly do that. There's plenty of them. Have fun. Or you can simply add these, keep these 3, and say including but not limited to in the terms of sexual orientation. That is the only section that this amendment is affecting, is saying including but not limited to these 3 definitions of sexual orientation. As someone who is a self-identifying bisexual, I am, of course, very happy that I'm included in this. But as someone who is maybe identifying as pan or identifies as asexual, they are not included in this. And for discrimination purposes, to be included in this, you have a legal leg to stand on. Because as we stated before, there's no other law right now that gives any sexual orientation group a leg to stand on in the state of Florida and in Sarasota County, except for this ordinance here in Northport and some other cities. So either we are trying to be inclusive of everyone, or we are only going to box out and say, no, sorry, your sexual orientation doesn't count. Like you're thrown to the wolves. So we can either do an add all, which we can wait till the next meeting to add, or we can do what Commissioner Luke is trying to do and simply just included but not limited to. Thank you.
Thank you. Just for clarification, there is no other meeting. This is the second reading. So, City Attorney, you have that answer?
Yes, ma'am. In section 16-04, which is another provision of the Human Rights Ordinance in the City Code, it does provide a private cause of action. It provides that an aggrieved individual may commence a civil action in a court of competent jurisdiction against the person alleged to have committed a discriminatory practice, provided, and then it gives a statute of limitations of 1 year. If in a civil action commenced under this chapter, the court finds that a discriminatory practice has been committed or is about to be committed, the court may issue an order prohibiting the discriminatory practice and providing affirmative relief from the effects of the discriminatory practice, including but not limited to a temporary or permanent injunction or other equitable relief, a temporary restraining order, an award of actual damages, including back pay, punitive damages, an award of reasonable attorney's fees, interest, and costs, or other such relief as the court deems appropriate. It does continue and go into some additional detail, but that's an overview of the beginning of the provision.
So, City Attorney, can we go back to my original question? is there any safeguards as far as I understand it's a felony for molestation and so on and so forth, but is there a safeguard within the context of this ordinance, or do we not have to worry about that, or how does that work?
Well, certainly as you know, the city only has, we can only act, we only have so much power to act until it abuts against state and federal law. So if you're talking about a situation such as, yes, but still, I don't know how we could legally provide, for example, a discriminatory practice for pedophilia, when that is illegal. The other thing I can tell you is that some of the other definitions in the ordinance as it was approved earlier, which I know we're now in a reconsideration, but such as gender identity, it is a bit broader. It kind of gives you a definition, and it says including this. The final thing I can tell you is that the EEOC has been looking at the question of sexual orientation discrimination as potentially being covered under sex discrimination orientation. There's a lawsuit pending that the EEOC filed about that. There is no hard and fast definitions in the EEOC materials where they reference this and have an EEOC ruling. They also do not define it in a hard and fast way. The definition that's quoted there, that's the most general definition, is something I read earlier, which is sexual orientation refers to the sex of those to whom one is sexually and romantically attracted. So in the opinions and the actions from the EEOC that I've been reading, they are not defining it in a narrow sense. That doesn't mean that the commission has to do the same thing. I'm just kind of giving you the background that I've been able to find.
That helps me. Okay.
I have a
Okay. Can we go through the rounds one more time, and then we'll circle back and get something on the record here. Commissioner Hanks, Commissioner McDowell.
How does
Question?
Yeah, question. How does one do the private causes of action, especially when it comes to the sexual orientation? If I'm a renter and I want to rent to somebody, and I say no, and I don't know that they're whatever sexual identifier that they are or whatever sexual orientation they are, but I just said no because I don't want to rent to you, and then they come back and sue me because they're something that's not listed or is listed. How do I get protection? I'm a citizen of the city of Northport. This is our ordinance. How do I, as the person who wants to rent, get protections?
It's always about it.
Well, as those of us that are in the legal field or have been dealing with it all know, anyone can file a lawsuit at any time, and then it's a matter of defending it. But under this cause of action and any civil cause of action, the party who's bringing the cause of action, the plaintiff in the case, will bear the burden of proof. So, there will have to be some evidence at some point displayed for the court to sustain the lawsuit and not have the lawsuit dismissed, that there was a discriminatory action there. So, for example, if you rented out a room and you did not know about someone's sexual orientation, I think they would have probably a difficult time succeeding in their case based on sex orientation discrimination. They don't have any evidence that you knew about it and took that into consideration.
Thank you.
Vice Mayor?
Yeah, my question is, from what I heard the city attorney say, if an amendment were proposed, as what Commissioner Luke was looking at, it would be sexual orientation means a person's actual or perceived sexuality, including but not limited to heterosexual, homosexual, or bisexual. Is that correct, city attorney?
Yes, ma'am. I believe
Okay.
that's the motion on the table.
Well, we didn't get really a motion because we didn't have a motion in a second.
The only other thing that I could find to suggest, if you want to do something different, would be that kind of more general language that I read out of this EEOC opinion, where it says that the term refers to the sex of those to whom one is sexually and romantically attracted. It's a general term. It doesn't narrow it to any type of sexuality specifically.
Well, what I was going to ask is, what if that sentence were just meant to, or would say, sexual orientation means a person's actual or perceived sexuality, period? Isn't that what we're talking about, is sexuality?
I have not had this long conversation
I know.
on sex in a long time. I do not even.
Because it seems that getting into naming and identifying the different types is where, so to keep it simple, if we just say
Let's go ahead and
actual
get a
or
motion on
perceived.
let's get a motion on the floor and then a second, and let's go there.
All right, I'll give that a try. So I'll move to approve ordinance number 2017-01 with the change.
Run, Patsy, run.
I didn't realize you were there.
Okay. Sorry. One more time.
All right. I'll move to approve ordinance number 2017-01 with the following change to the definition of sexual orientation, which would read, sexual orientation means a person's actual or perceived sexuality.
Second.
Okay, so that has been moved by Vice Mayor Yates, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Do you have that, Ms. Patsy?
Yes, ma'am, I do. Thank
Okay, excellent. Is there any comments, Commissioner
Say it one more
Yates?
time.
Oh,
Sure.
Sorry.
You want me to go ahead? Okay. The definition would read, sexual orientation means a person's actual or perceived sexuality.
And it sounds like it basically follows what the EEOC is pretty much saying. So,
In a
okay.
simpler term, too.
Right, in a
Perfect.
simpler term. So, Commissioner Yates, do you have any more comments on that?
No, I think that just keeps it from being bogged down into having all
So
those
what
other names.
Commissioner Hanks' problem was with it, right? Commissioner Luke?
Yeah, I love it. It definitely gets to what I was after, so thank you.
Any other comments? Commissioner Hanks? No? All right,
Just trying to simplify, Commissioner Hanks.
let's go ahead and call the motion on that. So again, it's been moved by Commissioner or Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner Luke. Let's go ahead. And that passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner. Now we have to go back to C, 6C, which was discussion and possible action regarding the district and commission regular meeting schedule for 2018. And the clerk?
Yes, ma'am. 1 second, please.
Sure, sorry. We're going a little fast, I know.
Okay, we are on general business now.
6C.
6C. Okay. Commissioners, once again, it's time to...
Can you use your mic, please?
I'm sorry. Once again, it's time to approve the commission meeting schedule for the next year. So we have proposed a schedule to you that basically keeps the meetings the same. The only thing, and we have not made the change, we've just brought to your attention that in the past, the commission has changed the meeting date so that commissioners can attend to the National League of Cities. This year's League of City Conference will be March 11th through 14th. We've left it on your proposed schedule as March 13th, but we're asking the commission if maybe they might want to consider moving that first meeting in March to March 7th to allow commissioners to attend the conference.
Commissioner Luke.
I'm sorry, to March 6th. Last year it was changed to March 7th. This year we would need to change it to March 6th. And that's all.
6th from the 1st, right?
From the 13th to the 6th.
Look at the wrong one. Okay, Commissioner Luke?
My question is, we've been having a 1 o'clock in front of the 4 o'clock on that special meeting on the first Thursday. Do we need to consider that within this also or not?
It's only as needed, I thought.
Yeah.
I thought that 1 o'clock meeting was more as needed, and we've been using it as needed and taking advantage of that, but.
I thought we made it kind of official.
Actually,
That's why I'm bringing it up.
The special meeting begins at 1 o'clock p.m. with time certain at 4 o'clock p.m.
Right.
But that still doesn't, it's not reflective of this. This is the 13th is the scheduled meeting, and we're asking you to move, oh, I see what you're saying, to March 6th to replace the March 13th meeting is what we're asking. That's what the commission has done in the past. Doesn't mean That's what the commission has to do this year. We were just reminding you that if all of the commissioners want to go to the National League of City Conference, you would not have a quorum for the March 13th meeting, you know, if all of the commissioners went. So we were just asking that you consider possibly moving the March 16th, when you adopt the schedule, making the March first meeting in March for the commission regular meeting schedule be March 6th.
The March 13th.
At 1 o'clock.
Right, the March
Yes, ma'am.
13th to March 6th.
Change it to March 6th at 1 o'clock.
I'm not sure.
Is that national or state?
National.
National League.
Well,
When we go to DC.
that? Oh, that one.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's pretty important.
Yeah, that one's when we get to meet with our federal elected officials.
Right. And the date on that is the 11th
Through the 14th.
through the 14th.
Commissioner McDowell, Commissioner Hanks?
Yeah, this question's a little off. Did you say that you had it in our calendars? Because I don't have anything
No,
for those dates.
we just checked to see what the date of the conference was going to be.
Okay, and so you were just telling us today when
Just
those
letting
dates
you
were.
know today that you
Just
may
making
want
sure
to
my calendar's
consider
still
that.
working or not working, because
This is 2018, that's why it's not in there yet.
right. Well, no.
Yeah.
I mean the National League.
Right.
Right, it's
Of city
March.
dates. Yeah. Well, yeah. It just wasn't. There wasn't anything
It
tentative in my
hasn't,
calendar.
they haven't sent out their information
Officially.
probably, and they haven't started registration yet. We checked to see, and I believe the city manager's office also checked to see what the dates of the conference were going to be, so that we could have y'all consider that when you were considering your schedule.
And that was the 12th, or 11th through 13 is
11th
what it
through
is.
14th.
Through 14th, okay. So, Vice Mayor, right, okay, Vice Mayor, anything else?
I don't know if the city manager has something to add to that. He's got his light on.
City Manager.
I just wanted to point out, if you do make that move, you will have 3 commission meetings that week, on Monday, Tuesday, and Thursday.
Possibly Monday.
Possibly.
Possibly 3 commission meetings at a minimum that week.
Vice Mayor.
I don't have anything. Question was answered. So, do you need a motion?
I need you to take your light off, but yeah.
Make a motion.
Anyone?
I'll make a motion that we approve the district's regular schedule, meeting schedule for year 2018 with the one change, removing the March 13th at 1 o'clock meeting it and changing the date to March 6th at 1 o'clock.
Second.
All right, so it has been moved with the noted changes by Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Vice Mayor. Is there any other comments, Commissioner McDowell? Vice Mayor? No? Anyone else? Okay, seeing none, let's go ahead and vote. And that passes unanimously. Moving on up. On to item D, discussion and possible action regarding an updated speakers form. City Clerk?
Yes, ma'am, this one's going to be really simple as well. I have submitted to you the proposed change to the staff, to the public speaker form, just removing the request for the address as Commission had directed, and also removing the reference to the ordinance. Everything else stays the same. And I'm happy to answer any questions, or we'll make any changes the Commission directs. But those were just the 2 simple changes that I made.
Commissioner McDowell?
Yes, I was curious, why do we have to have the oath on the back?
I don't believe that we do. I believe it was specifically asked for by one particular advisory board, the code enforcement, and it was put on there several years ago at the request of that board. We no longer have that board. However, we do have the special magistrate. I don't know if Amber may have some reason that they would possibly need it for planning and zoning. We always swear people in anyway. Right. So it doesn't, I don't think it would affect commission meetings, but.
I think that goes back to when I served the last time. If I remember correctly, we were trying to do it more like Sarasota County, where you didn't have to have everyone stand up and swear. All they had to do was sign the card.
But I don't believe we for commission meetings, I believe we very rarely ever get them that part is signed. We still
Right.
swear them in.
Right. So that's what it was intended for.
I'll be happy to remove it unless Amber would like to weigh in if there's any reason why she thinks it should stay there.
Can you do that? Have them sign the card versus having them stand and swear? I mean, they do it in the county all the time, but that doesn't mean anything.
It's not something I've looked into. I can tell you that in the code enforcement before the special magistrate, everyone who's going to speak, not just those who fill out the card, is sworn in at the beginning of the meeting, and then again if they miss that for some reason before they speak. The Planning and Zoning Advisory Board, they're also sworn in for the quasi-judicial items as well.
So there's no state ordinance or anything that says that we have to do the, I mean, state statute that says we have to do this?
I'm not aware of one
Writing?
offhand, Commissioner, but it's not something I've looked into. I have to be straightforward about that.
You good?
The next one, it says under the commission, Vice Mayor, you're going to like this one.
Oh, boy.
We have our meeting procedures. So this is a speaker's forum. Why are we even having commission decorum on a speaker's forum? That's something we have to follow, and that's in our meeting procedures.
Again, that was something that was requested many years ago, and I was not directed to take that off of the revision, but that was something that was requested by a former commission to just show the public that the commission just followed rules of decorum as well as expecting the public to do. So that's something that we were requested to put on there. I believe it was back in 2008.
Yeah, it was. I remember very clearly. Mm-hmm.
But like I said, I was not directed when I was directed to revise to take that off. I was directed to look at the ordinance reference on there and the address. But I'll be happy to take off anything the commission would like me to. But that was the reasoning, as I remember it, was to just show the public, just put all the rules of decorum on there, and it would show the public that the commission is expected to follow them as well as the public.
Just a couple more, Mayor, sorry. And the persons addressing the commission, I really think it's important to let them know that they do have that 3-minute limitation, time limit, and that's not referenced on here. Is there a possibility of adding that 3 minutes? So that way that, I mean, if they have to fill the card out, it's on there that they get 3 minutes?
I can add anything the commission directs me to add.
Okay. And the members of the audience, if they're not going to speak, they're not even going to see what their rules of conduct are?
Actually, that's in a way kind of not true because we do put the rules of decorum on the agendas as
Right.
well.
So it's not
Cover
necessary
sheet.
on the back of a speaker's card is where I
It's-
was going.
It's on both because a lot of people don't grab the agenda. So it was on the speaker card, and then for those that don't speak, it's also on the agenda cover sheet.
Okay. And then the last one, Mayor, where it says that they have to hand the card to, I'm sorry, that they cannot approach the dais without consent of the presiding officer. I believe it should say police officer, so there's no misunderstanding? No?
I
The
don't
mayor?
even think it's supposed to be in there, and that's going to be one of my questions
Okay.
because it conflicts with what we had passed in the ordinance. While it's in session, they can't walk up, period, to the dais.
Well, no, it said period.
Right.
No, it didn't even have to do with session, did it?
It says police officer on mine.
It says
No.
presiding officer.
No, the very last
At the very
sentence, the
bottom.
very last sentence on the back part of the card, except for members of the commission and city staff, no person shall be allowed to approach the commission dais without the consent of the presiding officer. And I thought that was the police officer.
Again,
or-
that was
yeah.
not something that I was directed to remove, but I'll be happy to, whatever the commission directs me, I can revise this any way you would like.
I thought we kept it as presiding officer because the mayor actually has.
May not be there.
Is the one that kind of oversees what's going on.
Well, it would be the mayor or the acting mayor either way.
Right.
Which would be a presiding
The
officer.
presiding officer, yeah.
Okay. But those are the ones that I wanted to have a discussion about, so my questions are done. Thank you.
Commissioner Luke?
I like the one she was talking about, the 3-minute thing. I actually think it needs to be on the front, not the back. I think it pretty much needs to be clear to the speaker. And is there a way that we can, on the front, because it's confusing when they come in to fill those cards out and they see agenda item number, but they just want to speak to the general comment, you know? Is there some way to word it or put it that they just want to speak to the general comment? I mean, so it's a little easier to understand that?
Yes, ma'am. However, I would like to just point out that it does make it easier if they choose between whether they want the first public comment or the second. So they do have agenda item numbers as well. You have your first public comment, and then you have your second. And
then
so
they have
choose.
they have comment time during the agenda item also.
So that's why typically when if they want to speak to public comment, they would put the first public comment, which would be item number.
Today it's 3.
Today, yes, it is 3. And then if they wanted to speak to the second one, they would put agenda item number 8. Or
Okay.
if a regular item, then they would put the item number.
Okay.
But again, I will do it however the commission directs me to do it.
Vice Mayor?
So on the agendas that are printed out for the public that they have, it says meeting procedures, and it has the speakers make comment on general public comment beginning or end, and then it says you can speak on each item. Maybe the instructions we're doing on the agenda should also match what's on the card, because it's talking about the 3 minutes. So, you know, maybe this back of the card needs to be cleaned up, taking the oath off, and making this consistent to match what we have on our agendas, because it seems to capture what was said about the 3 minutes and everything else. So that way there's all consistent information.
Just for clarification, you said remove the back, so you're saying remove the rules of decorum, the oath, everything that's on the back, and put what is on at the front of our cover sheet?
Mhm.
I just want to make sure that I'm clear in case that is what the direction is.
Yeah, where it's saying oath and then a commission and then persons addressing the commission, the members of the audience. I mean, it's kind of reiterating what persons addressing the commission is. In other words, the decorum needs to be on there.
So rules of decorum leave on, then the oath leave on, and then remove commission section, the person addressing the commission section, and members of the audience section, leaving the last sentence, and put the other. Is that what you're referring to? I just want to make sure that I'm clear and understand.
Yeah. The meeting procedures that I'm reading on this agenda says speakers may comment under public comment at the beginning and the ending of each meeting on any issue that is related to city business, whether or not the item is scheduled on the agenda, with the exception of quasi-judicial items.
Right.
And that matches our ordinance. And then number 2, speakers may comment on all scheduled items and quasi-judicial items at the time the item is being discussed.
Yes, ma'am. You're talking about the meeting procedure portion.
Correct.
Right.
Please indicate on the speaker card writing the public comment if you want to wait until you are recognized by the presiding officer. State your name, so comments may be properly recorded, and limit your remarks to the period of 3 minutes or less.
I just wanted to make sure that I was clear. You're saying to remove those 3 portions and replace it with this one?
I'm sharing with the commission.
I mean,
Is
that
that
was your
does that
suggestion.
capture everything that it should have on there?
As long as we have the decorum for the audience is also
Right.
going to be kept. That's
So
yeah,
you
that
would
sounds-
let me just try to summarize this. You're saying to add the meeting procedure summary that was just read, to remove the oath, the commission portions, keep the persons addressing to commission, that portion on it, or not?
Yes, because that's the decorum.
Mhm.
Okay.
Members of the
audience keep, correct?
No, that's
that off.
redundant, but the persons addressing commission would be members of the audience and persons addressing the commission.
Okay.
We have that one paragraph there.
Okay. So it sounds like you would have this and then this portion that's in the regular agenda.
Right.
And then you would say rules of decorum, and then it would have what's being said here in the proposed card, persons addressing the commission, everything after that. But it would say persons, it would say members of the audience, period, addressing the commission. And it would have all of the details in one.
Right. That one paragraph.
Okay, what about that very last, the except for members of commission?
That would stay on there.
Would stay on there as well. Yeah. Do you understand that?
I think you want to remove I just want to have this clear, remove the oath.
Mm-hmm.
Remove the portion that says commission. Then it would say meeting procedure. And then the next, after the meeting procedure section, then it would say rules of decorum, and it would have persons addressing the audience instead of commission.
Correct.
And then the last thing would be the, except for members of the commission and the city staff. So we would remove the members of the audience section as well.
No, she wants the members of the audience part to be in combination with the persons addressing the commission, correct?
Yes.
Just combine the two.
Combine them.
Mm-hmm.
So it's not redundant, just
right.
Have one paragraph there. You want me to make a motion?
Mm-hmm. Okay. Go ahead. So is that your motion there, Vice Mayor?
Yeah.
I'll second.
So we have, the city clerk is clear, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so we have a motion and a second to change the speaker's form as discussed. And is there any other conversation, Vice Mayor?
No, not unless the clerk needs me to restate
No,
what we're
ma'am,
doing.
I believe I have it, and I will,
Okay.
I will
So-
double check the,
Right.
before
So
I submit it to y'all.
we're just going to have the meeting procedures is the first paragraph, and then a paragraph for the members of the audience and
you.
addressing
I
the
thought we were
commission.
talking about
And then
two.
the last part is going to be about approaching the dais, so it'll simplify and consolidate.
I do have one more question. Well, I guess y'all haven't voted on this yet, so once you vote, then I have a question.
Okay, so that's been moved by the Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner McDowell. Is there anything else to add to that? Okay, so let's go ahead and call the vote on that, and then we will anxiously await the question. And that is unanimous.
And now my question is, would the commission like me to bring this back for them to review and approve, or would you like me to just make the changes and start using the form?
I think it's simple enough, but
yeah, make the changes
and use the form.
And if you feel more comfortable, put it on consent.
Commissioner Luke, is that all right? Make the changes and go, or do you want it back?
I don't think it's necessary to bring it back. I mean, in my head, though, I'm thinking the 3-minute portion could be done in bold.
How about red and bold?
There you go. I like red.
Yeah, and that meeting procedure probably could be consolidated a little bit too,
Yes,
you know,
yes,
when you put
ma'am.
it on there.
And of course, once we start using it, if there's anything y'all would like to tweak, if you
Always come back.
then you can always
Absolutely.
you can always ask me to bring it back.
Sounds good.
Excellent.
Thank you. But I will consolidate the two.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Okay, now we are moving on to item E. That's discussion and possible action regarding the Environmental Advisory Board. And Commissioner McDowell, this is your topic.
Yeah, thank you for letting me bring this forth for discussion. A lot of people are learning that we cannot have this kind of a discussion outside of this meeting. So this is one of those times where we have to kind of vet something. I talked to a lot of citizens, heard from a lot of citizens who wanted some kind of an environmental advisory board. So we worked diligently trying to put something together to reflect Northport's unique environment, and this is what we came up with. Obviously, it has not been vetted by the city attorney or by staff. I want to make sure that's perfectly clear. This is just something we put together to kind of see if this is the direction that the fellow commissioners would like to go in. Do you want to move forward? Do you want to scrap it? Do you want to change it? So now we start discussion. Thank you.
So how I'd like to handle this before I get to questions, can we all make sure we're working off the same thing, the sample ordinance, Northport Environmental Advisory Board? Just want to make sure we're all on that. Okay. So I guess that if this becomes quite lengthy, we're going to have to postpone this and bring this to another meeting, because the way I'm estimating it, we have about 45 minutes left, and I have a feeling West Village is going to contain the majority of that. So let's go ahead and Commissioner Luke.
My question wasn't even from the ordinance. There's the bottom two, Port Orange and Jacksonville, who are coastal communities. Did you find anybody else like Inland or that has got environmental boards, or why those two instead of Inland?
I just picked them because they were larger cities that I figured would have an environmental advisory board. A lot of the interior, I didn't check all 67 counties or all of the municipalities to see if they had an advisory board. I just picked them. There was no rhyme or reason to it. I just picked them.
Okay.
It was difficult to try and find an ordinance, environmental ordinance in various cities. It was difficult. So it was kind of like,
the idea
I
of
found
it, so
two and I
that's
stopped
wondered.
looking kind of thing.
Okay.
It was just to kind of give me an idea of what they had.
Okay.
Vice Mayor.
Yep, Vice Mayor, or Mayor, in the essence of, sorry, in the essence of the time, I just thought maybe, you know, that we shouldn't necessarily wordsmith it by going line by line by line, but just conceptually. And so conceptually, if we look at this, as far as the ordinance goes, a lot of this is probably not even really necessary to have in here because of that general ordinance we have that talks about the quorum and talks about all of that. So I'm just going to kind of focus in on the powers and duties, you know, looking at that, and trying to really determine what is it we want this board primarily to do. Because environment is very, very huge. I mean, it's very broad. And so do we want to make it more that they're going to be advising us on like policies and programs and matters that pertain to natural resources, as well as the wildlife corridors? Do we want to focus that in on that? Or are we looking at to be bigger than that? So that's kind of the big question that I have on this.
May I make a suggestion? When I was looking at the agenda, I honestly did not think this meeting would be lengthy. And this is an important issue. However, we have another issue that honestly I didn't think was going to be as a hot topic as it has become. So maybe what we need to do, and a city attorney help me with this, I don't want to pull this because we do have to have a discussion. I would like to have a discussion on it, but maybe this would be a discussion for another time so that we can give it the attention that it deserves. We have a lot of people here in the audience. They have attention that they deserve too. So this is just a procedural thing for the board to consider. Maybe we should just bring this back at another time.
I was going to say, if we, I want to see first if Commissioner Hanks has any specific question, and then what we'll do is I will ask that we get a consensus to bring this back on the next day workshop thing that we have an opening, because I do think this is going to take a little bit more time to converse about, but then I'll ask generally, is this okay to move forward with? So Commissioner Hanks, do you have any more questions?
My question is more like the Vice Mayor, and the other was really the only thing we have to do today is decide, is this what we want to do?
Right. Okay.
Because this is a sample, so there's nothing really to go
Right.
by. So So I'm with you. We just have
Okay.
to get a consensus. Do we want to bring this back?
So do you want to bring this back? Is it okay?
Sure.
Yes. Okay, we know Commissioner McDowell's a yes. Commissioner Yates? Yes? Yes. Okay, and Commissioner Luke?
Can I make a statement too? My question earlier when we were talking about the meetings, and to my knowledge, we haven't stated we're going to continue our 1 o'clock meetings on that first Thursday. This would be a great agenda item for one of those 1 o'clock meetings. So as it stands right now, when I look at my calendar next month, there's not a 1 o'clock meeting. So just,
In December?
yeah, we did not approve a 1 o'clock Thursday.
That's for next year, starting in January.
Right, that you have meetings in December. Get with the clerk.
And actually, you know,
No,
that's
we just approved for this
for January.
for January. Okay. But then it's no more after that point then, because we didn't instate it or, put it in place today. So just trying to make everybody aware that we did not approve that 1 o'clock meeting.
But in the meeting procedures, in the meeting procedures, though, it is in there as a as-needed 1 o'clock meeting for a special meeting.
That's correct. In the meeting procedures, it's in there as needed. That may be something the commission may just want to go back and reconsider and change that schedule. We proposed the schedule to you the same way it was proposed last year, without making changes. If you want to have the Thursday meeting at 1 o'clock, then you'll have to make a motion to that effect, because what you approved was for a 4 o'clock.
Yeah, I don't have a problem with the way it was approved. It's the same as we did last
That's
year.
what I
We
thought.
don't want that 1 o'clock to be absolute, or else we get into the whole purse idea that Commissioner Hanks has been talking about forever. So
My understanding was when y'all directed that we change them to 1 o'clock, that was until December.
Right. So back on task here, Environmental Advisory Board. Are you okay with bringing it back, Commissioner Luke?
Yes.
Okay, great. All right, so if we will just go ahead and schedule that for a time uncertain. We don't need a motion because it's not an ordinance or a resolution, so we're good to go.
I appreciate that, and I'm glad that we're going to have the discussion. Just another meeting, another time, so we can move on.
City Manager, what do you want?
I want to make sure I know exactly what you want us to bring back. Do you want staff to review and the attorney to review this ordinance, or you just want to bring it back as is for another meeting?
I think that Commissioner McDowell should get with the city attorney and staff, and between a conglomeration between you guys, you can bring back something for discussion.
Well, okay, I can do that, not a problem, but I was under the impression we were going to kind of vet it and see what this board thought of what they wanted their environmental advisory board to
You
have.
just want the sample letter, the
Yeah,
sample to
yeah,
come
just
back,
come
and
back
then.
and then we'll vet it and see, because there's no point in doing it twice.
No, I understand that, but my concern is that you're going to have these, and then we're just going to tell you what the city attorney could have told you in a private one-on-one conversation about
Tell
that
me what y'all want me to do.
sample.
I brought it forth because that's what we discussed.
Yeah, I think probably what the mayor is saying, as far as a rough cleanup sort of, because
Right.
there's a lot of pieces to this that we probably won't see in the sample. We're going to focus that. It'll probably help narrow down our focus when we get to that meeting, because a lot of this is already.
Okay, so you'll go ahead and get with, thank you, city manager, for getting that out there. City clerk.
I just wanted to ask for clarification, because I thought I heard workshop. Bring it back for a workshop.
Well, I said workshop, special meeting, something, something. I didn't really clarify, so.
We're going to have to
figure
do it
that
at another time because I have to get with them at this point.
Exactly.
Okay.
So you're going to figure that out. Vice Mayor,
We
was there-
expect it back in whatever.
And a closer to final format.
Yeah.
Is that what you're? Okay.
It's going to be a draft. It's just going to have less on it.
So we'll remove sample and put sample 2.
Draft.
Draft, okay.
City manager has this down pat. Vice Mayor, anything else?
No, ma'am.
Okay, so let's move on to item F, discussion and possible action regarding correspondence from Miami Beach. Wait, is this the one we pulled? No, okay. Miami Beach, Mayor Philip Levine, pertaining to the endangered orca whale, Lolita. Commissioner Yates, this is your agenda item?
Yes, I put in the backup you can see the letter that was sent to me, and I thought it was something that rather than just asking staff to do a resolution on it, because we had received this letter, I'd provide it to everybody and then just bring it up for this meeting. And if everybody's in agreement, we can direct the staff to bring us a resolution. It's really, when you look at the information about this and the whale and the conditions that this whale has been in for so long, I certainly support us doing a resolution just to send a message out asking to retire the whale and put it back in its better environment. So that's what I'm asking for.
Any questions, commissioners? No? If not, can we get a motion?
Sure. I'll move that we direct the city manager to prepare a resolution similar to the City of Miami Beach to be sent to the owner of the Miami Sea Aquarium and the Florida League of Cities, and to place the item on the December 5th, 2017 Commission special meeting.
We have a second. Seconded by Commissioner Luke.
Okay. And Mayor, the reason I stated the motion as I did is because there's parts of that resolution that we're not going to be sending it to every single city in the state of Florida. So.
Right. Okay.
Thank you.
Commissioner Luke, do you have anything to the motion?
Free Lolita.
Anyone else? All right, with that, let's go ahead and vote. And that is unanimous. Awesome. And now to the biggie. So before we go on with this, I just have a couple of things to say. First and foremost, decorum. There is no clapping. There is no yelling. There is no talking. There is no... We have to have decorum here. And it's not just for the audience. It's just as much as for the commission. With that said, I just want to get on the record here. There has been some conversation about a newspaper article that I supposedly was quoted in. And if there's one thing that I know of, I know when I make a mistake. I remember those very clearly, those days. And I can tell you that there are many, many days that I've made mistakes and still to this day will continue to make mistakes. That I do not ever remember saying. And I would love to see that video. I'm going to tell you right now. And I would know because there has been some doozies. Trust me. That's not one of them. So I want to make that very clear that I do not ever remember saying such words. Not that they were curse words, because I'm good for those. I'll give you that one, but no. So let's get that clear, and let's just keep it cool. And if we have to, I will adjourn the meeting, and we'll come back at another day to discuss it. So just to make that very clear. With that, this was brought to us by, was it by the city manager? Okay. Look at you.
Look at me. You never knew I'd cause so much trouble.
I know, right? Good for you.
Yes,
right?
No.
I'm just teasing. That was a tease.
Now, this was brought to my attention multiple times by multiple commissioners. And yes, I was around in 2009 when we went through this the first time. First, I do want to say that the second letter that's referred to in here was not 2014. It was actually 2010. That's a typo on my part. As far as whether or not you want to pass a resolution, the reason that I put that in there is because I just wanted it to be exactly how we did it last time. If you want to send a letter, if you want to do some other action, have town hall meetings, have get-togethers, whatever you want to do, this was just put on here to start a conversation. Clearly it's working. From that perspective, it's not meant to offend anybody, to start a riot, or any of those other things. This was put on here because of, like I said, numerous times that I have heard that we want Northport to all be Northport. And to get that clarified once and for all, as well as being brought up to me that in 2009, when we did receive the letter, the postmaster said in 2 to 5 years they would be considering the change again. Obviously, there was a recession that happened in there, but from 2009 to 2017 is a little more than 2 to 5 years. So the question is whether or not you all want to address this again. Now, like I said, it was brought up to me by more than one. So when more than one of you bring it up to me, I try to put it on an agenda.
And we appreciate it. Vice Mayor?
That was actually shorter than what I thought you were going to be.
I have a whole lot more. If you want more history or anything else, we can. I just figured,
No.
this was designed for you all to have a conversation, not to listen to me.
All right. And I was one that had conversations with the city manager and really encouraged us having that conversation, because we cannot talk about this unless we have this conversation here. And my intent in having this conversation really was not making a resolution or sending letters off at this time. What I really was wanting to do is to have the city manager start the conversation with the post office. And concurrently, while starting that conversation, was for us to do a town hall meeting with the West Villages area, with the residents there. And the reason I was thinking along that line was because of the fact that we need to work together as a community for this issue. And as far as any change to the zip code, whether it's just adding a name to the line or it's getting our zip code for that area, it does need to be embraced by the community that it's going to affect. And that's very, very clear in the Postal Service process, in their process for any changes to a zip code. So we have to start that conversation. So my desire was to have that town hall meeting. What are those benefits to the residents in West Villages, obviously, as well as to the city of Northport, for us to have a dedicated zip code? We have to have that conversation. There needs to be an understanding out there as to what monies we're potentially losing. And we're losing it as a city, not just the West Villages or not just the rest of the city. And that conversation needs to happen so that we all can realize the benefits, support, and have this unified support to be able to get what Northport deserves, Northport and West Villages. So that's where my mindset was going. And the only way I think we can get there is by embracing and having that conversation. There are many, many aspects when it comes to safety, public safety, police and fire, pension from the insurance premiums. There's many things that our zip codes are used for that right now is likely not getting accounted for, as well as even through the real estate industry. So I just wanted to share that's my mindset, where I was coming from in prompting, the conversation. And the reason I think we need to do it concurrently with the post office is because, in their own words, they had it in their long-range plan to either split that zip code, for us to have a zip code. They said 2 to 5 years. We allowed the recession time. Now is the time to get that conversation going. We have a census coming up in 2020. It will be devastating, in my opinion, to this community and the West Villages. The West Villages part of Northport. It will be devastating if we don't get the right data, the right numbers, and the right research. So I just wanted to share a little bit of that and where my mindset was, in regards to this. And I'll just move on, and I'm sure I'll have something else to say as we go on.
Commissioner McDowell?
Yeah, I too had talked to the city manager about this West Villages, Northport difficulty. I think the Braves is also what brought it to light, because when the Braves came and they were initially talking about spring training in Venice or spring training in West Villages, all 5 of us collectively wanted to reach across, jump over, and say, no, you're in Northport. And they pretty much heard us loud and clear on that. Too much that they even sent a letter that evening or next day saying, yes, we're in Northport. Spring training is going to be in Northport. So I think that's what prompted part of this discussion also. There's a lot of misinformation being floated out there. As gently and delicately as I can tell you, folks, if you bought in the West Villages, that is inside the Northport city limits, you bought in Northport. You live in the city of Northport. You didn't buy an address. I have yet to meet a person that buys an address. You buy a home in a specific location. So there's a lot of misinformation out there, and I really think too that when we have this town hall meeting, and Vice Mayor, that is an absolutely fantastic idea, that with this town hall meeting, I hope there is going to be an educational element to it. To the pros and the cons. I understand that there's a concern about insurance rates going up. There's a concern about the cost of changing your bank account and your cost of changing your magazines and newspaper subscriptions. These are all things that do have to be taken into consideration. I know when I moved here in 1992, my zip code was 34287, and it was Port Charlotte. And it was Northport, and it was Venice, and it was Gulf Cove. I had all 4 cities in that zip code. I didn't care. I knew I lived in Northport. I knew where I paid my taxes to, Northport. I knew where I got my services from, Northport. I just wanted to make sure I got my mail. So that was the biggest thing back then. And I would think that that would be the biggest concern with the folks in West Villages, is that they get their mail. I spoke to the property appraiser's office this morning. I actually had a very lengthy conversation with them because I wanted to be prepared with facts. And if the commission would like to hear what I learned, I'd be more than happy to share it.
Okay. You're going to talk about their property values supposedly
Correct.
going down? Thank you. Please, please.
So when I went to talk to the property appraiser's office, he, like I said, I was there for probably a good hour. And he said that the property values are determined on January 1st. So on January 1st of 2018, they're going to be evaluating the property values based on 2017's data. And the way that they do that is they use the previous year's sale of the general area. So because everybody knows Grand Paradiso and Island Walk, I'm going to use them as the example. If you live in Grand Paradiso, the homes that were either purchased or sold in that area is what determines that value. Okay,
Did they give you a radius, like a 3-mile radius?
Well, that's what he said. He said they do not go outside of that general area. And I said, so for example, I live at Cranberry and Price. You would not use the home sales and the property purchases and stuff of Cranberry and Price to evaluate the homes in Grand Paradiso. He said, no. He says, we even take it one step further, and we hone in on what is the size of the home. That also affects the value. Does it have a pool or not a pool? How was it constructed? What is the age of the home? Obviously, a home in Grand Paradiso that was constructed in 2008 may have a lesser value than a home that was newly constructed because of the new building code requirements. He said that even in Grand Paradiso, they would go on to, if your home in Grand Paradiso is on like a main thoroughfare versus a cul-de-sac, you actually are going to have a little bit lower property value than being in a cul-de-sac. The view is also what affects your property values. If you have a view of a pond or a forest or trees or your backyard, your neighbor's backyard, that affects your property values. It does not affect, if he said, and I quoted it, the properties appraiser's office values are driven by market conditions only, which is very similar to what real estate market conditions are driven by. It doesn't matter if you live in the city of Northport or the city of Venice. It does not matter. Market conditions is what drives the property values with appraisers of office. Just like real estate, it is driven by the market conditions, not the name of the city that is on your mailing address. The other thing is, I asked him one step further. Thank you for letting me share this information. If the change took effect from Venice to Northport, is there a way to determine if that is going to be a positive effect on property values, a negative effect on property values, or a zero effect on property values? He said there is no way he can predict that because market conditions change throughout the year. Market conditions in real estate change daily. I mean, geez, if the president says something, people are going to start having their markets affected and their values of their home. Look what happened in 2007 and 8. And that had nothing to do if you had a Northport or a Venice address. It had to do with the valuations based on the market. So I hope that helps enlighten everybody and shared that information. The property appraiser's office is right there in Venice. You can even come here to City Hall on Wednesdays and talk to them and get your own facts if you don't believe what they were telling me. They knew I was a commissioner, so they had every reason to be factual and honest with me. And I see a lot of people shaking your heads, and that's entirely up to you. I'm sharing the information that I learned. As factual it is, because the property appraiser's office has no reason to misguide me. Thank you for letting me share that.
Thank you. Okay, Commissioner Luke?
I've been running around like a chicken with its head cut off trying to look at a lot of stuff. Only being on the commission for 6 months, I wasn't here when all of the other was going on. In fact, I was just moving to Northport when all of this came up in 2009. And I really wasn't aware of everything that went on at that time. I've been to insurance companies, I've talked to insurance agents, I've talked to the post office, I've talked to realtors, I talked to West Village themselves, trying to find out, as well as multitudes of you primarily from Grand Paradiso. And again, thank you for, all of your correspondence. So I've learned a lot. One of the things that really is invaluable to me that I learned was West Village is a improvement district. And we have a little more understanding of what a CDD is because we have several of them in Northport. But an improvement district is a taxable district, and they're a lot larger than CDDs, a whole lot larger. They're long-term plans that take 20, 30 years for where the CDD is smaller and it's developed more quickly. In comparison to what an improved district is, look at Lakewood Ranch. They're an improvement district. And I moved to Bradenton, worked in Lakewood Ranch when all of that was going on. And Lakewood Ranch sits in Bradenton, not Sarasota. But the people who moved to Lakewood Ranch wanted a Sarasota address for probably a lot of the same reasons people wanted the Venice address moving to West Villages. But it is an improved district that sooner or later, when it hits that magic number somewhere around 10,000, they're issued a zip code just like Lakewood Ranch was. Now, Lakewood Ranch is still part of Bradenton, but they have their own zip code, that designated zip code. Whether it's addressed now or whether it's addressed later, I'm afraid to tell you that it's going to be coming. I think the idea of town hall meetings is excellent. I think there's a lot of education that needs to go on as to maybe even the millions that we funded the stadium with, that it was surtax and not tax dollars, how we act, or what do you call it when you bring annexed from the county, that property where West Village is currently, how we brought it in and what the process was that, going through that. And I mean, learn the history of this and find out what the truth of all of this is and where we go from there. I feel really bad about the people who, I mean, we all received a letter from a realtor stating that 3 or 4 of those companies were telling the people, oh, you know, yeah, you're in Northport, but man, you've got Venice as your address. And they're like being duped into thinking something that was false. And that's ugly. That's not right. That's not being fair to the people who are looking at the real estate. I'm not going to have or tell you or try to have you rise up against these companies or anything, but to me, you're unjustly treated by maybe shadowing some truths. So I think the meetings are good. I think there needs to be education. Northport's proud of West Villages. I mean, they're great, and the plans that they have going forward are phenomenal. And I would just like to see us come together and discuss these things, educate, you know, each other, and understand where we're all coming from.
Vice Mayor, before we go the second round, Commissioner Hanks, do you have anything? Can I just real quickly talk about how I was working with League of Cities, Allison Payne, I'm in the process of getting a hold of, because this is not, in other words, there's other actions that we as a city can take that are beyond the postal conversation, sending the letter. And once I got that report, which I will probably have after December, beginning of December, when we go back for our policy meetings, then we'll probably have this conversation again. So I just wanted to kind of update you all on that. Vice Mayor.
Could we have a city manager put that map up that shows boundaries of the city and the layout of the city? Because I think this resonates with what Commissioner McDowell was explaining about the conversation with the property appraiser, and how basically far extended the city of Venice actually is from the West Villages. It's because it wouldn't,
huge zip code.
And when you were talking about, you know, when you're talking about how that's done, you can see the orange coloring is unincorporated county. So the purple is the city of Northport, and West Villages, you can see, is there. And city of Venice is in blue. Nowhere near where the city of Northport is. So that just resonated with what you were talking about. And the importance of this is again, how we as a community build and grow. And being a CDD, there are associated fees with that because of the roads internal to the West Villages are privately funded by the residents there in that improvement district, kind of like the Lakeside Plantation, and so they do that. However, what comes to the city of Northport from the taxes to the city of Northport and assessment fees is just like Lakeside Plantation or a place else in the community. It's for City Hall. And the West Villages Improvement District uses City Hall, as they have a right to, and they should. As well as the fire, the police, the solid waste, all of the other city services, except for the roadways and those internal functions that the district is taking care of. But other than that, we serve and proudly serve the West Villages and provide all of the city services for that area. I have repeatedly run into situations, as the city manager has, because in my conversation with him, he experienced the same thing, and probably many of us have done so as well. Standing by a realtor, promoting the Renaissance and the preserve and these new areas that this commission has worked with the developer and approving them. We do the planning and zoning. We have the staff that helps make West Villages what it is. And I'm hearing the conversation, and they're talking about Venice, and they're selling it as Venice, and that's where a major, huge problem is. And the real estate industry knows better than that, and that's what we have to fix.
Vice Mayor, was this recently that you heard?
I
Really?
Pioneer
many
days.
times.
I mean, I saw it on the letters, but I got to tell you that it was probably exactly a year ago that I, with my in-laws, had kind of toured West Villages, and they said Northport very clearly.
In West Villages?
Yes.
No, I'm talking about outside of
Oh,
that.
okay,
I'm
I
talking
see.
about when you go to an event.
When you go to the
yeah.
hall in West Villages,
No.
when you go to their office for new houses,
Yeah.
they're very clear on it. You live
Although-
in Northport. I just want it very clear that
Although
you're
I
not duping anyone at the builder's side.
I will tell you, though, on the West Villages website, they're promoting Venice, not Northport. So that, I have a printout of that website. Island Walk, instead of promoting city government Northport, it says city government Venice, and it says city manager of Venice. These are the things. This is why I'm asking that we have a town hall meeting, have the conversation, so that we can help the situation and the benefits of us having that area, and it will have its own zip code once that population gets to a certain point because of the mail handling and so on. But right now, our residents in West Villages are missing out on things. Why? Because the zip codes are used for certain mailings, and I know back in 2010, when the currents first started, the residents in that area weren't getting it because they went by zip code, and having a Venice address there excluded West Villages from receiving information that was pertaining to Northport. So there are various different issues that with the communication, we can get this corrected. And since 2011, this city has made a concerted effort.
2011? 2008?
Well, no. 2011, there was, after all of that happened with the zip code in the past, to actually be inclusive of West Villages, reach out, have some outreach, events being held there, community conversations. The effort has been made, and we want to continue that, and as it should be. So that's why I think
jump
now is
off
the
of
time.
what you've said and just kind of
absolutely.
put this in perspective for, I can't even say it, for West Villages, and that is that I have dealt with a number of West Village residents on a variety of issues that they are very aware that we are their commission. One of the things is the light on US 41.
Right.
Okay, that's a big topic. I bring it up at just about every West Village conversation we have. When are we getting the light? When are we getting the light? When are we getting light? So it's been heard. And I have had numerous emails back and forth between a variety of West Village residents. The money for that light would come from FDOT in what's called MPO funds. Maybe we can put it this way. Those MPO funds are designated to us because of the populace. So if they go by that populace and they say that we don't reach that number, we're only going to get a certain amount of revenue through the state. It goes from the funds, from the federal money to the state money, down to the county, who gets distributed to the city. But everything is based off of populace. So when this census data comes back, let's just say it doesn't include West Villages, that West Villages for some reason gets lumped into the city of Venice. You guys are coming to us looking for us to find those MPO dollars for those lights, when you're going to have to go to Venice, because guess what? They gave that money to them. So this is why I'm trying to make it very clear that there are other reasons why this is so important.
And that's what I was talking about with the grant.
I was trying to give an example. Exactly.
Perfect example with the grants and the funding. And how does that help all of us, including West Villages, it helps us be able to keep millage rates down and you know, our assessments
River
down and
Road.
so on. So the more that we're able to get that, but we can only get it if we have the data.
Right.
The data is so important that right now this addressing issue is prohibiting us from being able to have the accuracy in the data that we need to help make the community overall achieve the things that we're trying to do. So,
Thank you.
perfect example on that.
Before we get into any more further comments, can
Can I have real quick? My round two? I know. I'll be very fast, I promise.
Okay.
Vice Mayor, I appreciate you bringing up about Island Walk. I just pulled it up.
You keep saying Vice Mayor. I keep thinking. I didn't talk about Island Walk.
Island Walk, about the community. I'm not going to have to read far. And it says, about the community, and I am at the Devasta Island Walk at West Villages. And it says about the community. Island Walk at the West Villages, located in Venice. Wrong, wrong, wrong. That is in Northport. And I am sorry.
Okay.
I am
Remember, this is, we
sorry.
get heated too. We get it, but we're gonna.
I am very sorry that in today's era of modern technology, that folks from out of this area and from out of this state, this happened 60 years ago when they were selling this area, that they were duped. And it's unfortunate that falseness is still prevalent in today's society and today's modern technologies. The information is out there that you folks are in Northport. We are so proud of the West Villages that we spend a lot of time with the West Villages and the growth. This is the growth of your city. And Northport is your city, and we are so proud of you guys. And we want you to be part of us. And my plea is, we're not bad. There are some very unsavory areas in Venice, just like there are in Northport, just like there are in Sarasota, just like there are in any other community across this nation. But you are a Northport resident, and I want you to be proud of us as much as you are of them. We are one area. We are one city. And I am sorry that the duping still continues today.
Okay, so now can we get to public comment?
Yes.
All right.
I made that quick.
Well, yeah,
yes.
Kind of. We'll go for it. All right, so we have 4 public commenters, folks. If I can, I'm going to call 2 at a time, and then we'll have the first one come up, the second one be on ready to go. Okay, so we have Mr. Rouse, Kevin Rouse, and then Victor Dobrin. Did I say that right, Victor? Dobrin. Batting 1,000 today.
Kevin Rouse, Ridgewood Drive. Obviously, this goes multi-pronged, and I see so many different things. I've been here 18 years or so, everyone is aware. Commission, know some of you, and you guys do a great job. But they're right. We want people here, but a big thing with Northport, I can't speak for any of them. I can speak for a lot of our community, a lot of our athletic community, and a lot of our other things that feel like we're in a bad area. I mean, not a bad area, but we're in a middle area that can't be done anything. We're at the end of Sarasota County, so you get kind of forgotten about with that. There's thousands of residents here that have said that. And so there's a little bit of probably hurt on both sides, I think. I mean, me living here and seeing how it's grown the community from nothing and where it's going, I mean, then we can get into like we can get into figures and metrics of some of these things. And if this is South Venice we're talking about right here. And from the figures I've seen, the average sale price, I mean, it comes down to money and value of homes. That's what it comes down to, a lot of it too. So South Venice, the average sale price is $209,800. City of Northport is $213,900.
Thank you.
The city of Venice is $340,000, but that is the city, that's the island of Venice. I have friends that live out there. I love Venice. I love that area. But Venice only has so much more to grow. You look at supply and demand, Northport is the only thing left along the Gulf Coast, and we're wanting this. And from what I've heard just in between a break, 2/3 of West Villages is inside city limits. So that's the majority, even if you just go by that. So if it's a personal thing that people are going by, like this is Venice versus Northport, and I mean, this may not be taken, I mean this with the most heart, but I have a lot of pride for Northport here. We all put a lot of work into this. I damn near kill myself trying to do things for the city. So basically, you can look at all the figures, the financial figures, everything, and if you just go by that alone, home values, and that we're scared that so we change to Northport. This isn't Northport of 1980. This is 2017 Northport that's going to probably skyrocket into the future. The next 5-10 years. So this is just my personal opinions here, going off some of the metrics from the Florida Realtors. And I'll just say this. I mean, I'm proud of Northport. I don't mean to come across as arrogant and, you know, I don't care about Venice. But I actually believe that if it came down to it, we're building into a stone. We can stand alone if we needed to in Northport. The numbers show, over the last, since 2016, numbers show that, just numbers alone, Venice actually needs Northport more than we need Venice.
Mr. Dobrin, and then after that will be Ruth Thurber. Was it even close?
To address some misconception about market price. We are not living in a state-controlled economy. It's market which dictates. I don't want to end up the appraiser to appraise me at $340,000 and pay taxes for that, and when I want to sell, I will get $200,000. That's the market. The market works in the United States, and if somebody doesn't know, it's what the local zip code and association of address can support. So that's very clear that what the city or the county assessor are doing, it's not reflecting the reality. As indicated, 340,000, the assessed value in Venice, 200 or 190 in Northport are totally different number. And if the address changes, you'll have less buyer for those properties. I didn't move here to sell, but there will be people because of health or other moving with the jobs will have to do that. So be cognizant of that we are not a state-controlled economy or someone who can prescribe. And you stated in your last comment that they couldn't guarantee the price values. So that's the reality. So we have to face it and not hide behind quotes from someone else. Yes, and you supported me. I want to contribute to this city. I consider myself part of the Northport city. However, I pay the price for my zip code, my mailing address. And this should be, if you don't admit it, it means that you don't listen to us. I don't see why someone else is coming and telling us what we should do, because we paid for that. There is no basis for someone
you can focus towards us, sir.
Secondly, I went with you at MPO. You haven't supported me, and the builders are paying for that. And from Unit 1 bonds, the next light is going to be at West Villages Parkway. So we are very selective. We are paying, but you are very selective what you are stating. Therefore, it's time for you to listen. Why are these people here? What do we gain? We have only to lose. I am part of this city and I want to contribute to this city, but don't discount me. That's a slap in my face, what you are doing today.
Okay, Mr. or Mrs. sorry, Thurber? Thurber, is that correct?
Thurber.
Thank you.
I live on Campanelli Court in Grand Paradiso. I'm
sorry. Can you please state your name?
I'm sorry. I'm Ruth Thurber. I live on Campanelli Court in Grand Paradiso in a Rogers home. Commissioner Luke, I lived in Lakewood Ranch at the time. I'm aware of what went on with the zip code. I lived there. Our zip code did change. They got a beautiful post office. We did not become a Bradenton mailing address. We remained Lakewood Ranch. City manager, when you said that you had 2 to 5 years to work on this, it's interesting. You also said when the recession hit that was after the recession had moved, we were beyond the recession, that now you're once again looking at counting the heads, counting the numbers, and the growth in Grand Paradiso. Commissioner McDowell, I am well aware of the way they assess and they appraise our property. Everything you said is accurate. For me, hearing the informative discussion, and this is my first meeting here, it sounds to me, and this is not to be insulting, it sounds like Northport has an inferiority complex. My husband and I knew where we were looking. We wanted to be in Venice. We know we're paying our city taxes. Please don't insult us. We know that we are paying city taxes in Northport and not in Venice. So we know where we are, we know why we came here, and we also know the image, and it's all a personal perspective, of what Venice brings to the table. And if you choose to live on a certain street, that's where you envision your family versus where we envision ours. So please don't insult us and say that we were duped. We were not duped. We're intelligent people. We know where we bought. We know how our assessment is done. So that's not a strong argument. That's an insulting argument. Mayor, I thank you for apologizing or misrepresentation. That was a comment I made earlier. I know nothing about any of you folks. I do know the data counts, the head counts, and you folks are fighting over where our dollars are going to go and where our needs are going. I get it. But I also know where our property values are, and I also know we used to live in Port Charlotte. We know what our property values were there. We built a similar house here. We know what our property values are with the Venice address versus a Northport address. Do the right thing. Don't make us go through changing and pay the price. Nothing has changed other than there's property growth, and you want to ride on our coattails. Thank you.
Okay, next is Michael Seppo. If you can state your name, please.
So it doesn't matter.
Well, it's only an S-E-P or...
Office Depot with an S.
I like it. But not the same bank account.
Not the way they've been going lately. I'm good.
Right?
Michael Seppo, again, from Real Circle, I talked earlier. Again, 30-year real estate broker, and I understand what you're saying, Ms. McDowell. Problem is you got bad information. The assessor's office and your appraiser bases that information for property, property taxes only. They don't have a clue what the market is. The market for, as a 30-year broker, I can tell you, a house is only worth what somebody's willing to pay for it at that time. So that information, first of all, they're working on information that's a year old, that's done, and they use that strictly to get money for the city and the county and whatever. So that information has nothing to do with an actual property value. And I can tell you that I know for a fact, because you'll never find a bank, a mortgage company, or an investor that will use a city appraisal for any mortgage. Isn't going to happen. If that was the case, we wouldn't need appraisers. They would just go to every village and say, what's the house worth? And they would give you a mortgage based on that. It doesn't happen that way. So I don't mean to be rude on that, but I think we got bad information. I've also noticed here, it seems, both sides have a problem. Number one, you guys are worried about the name Northport. These guys are worried about the name Venice, when the fact of the matter is everybody lives in Northport. That's the bottom line. You should go to the builders if they give this information out, and you got an attorney sitting there, and you call false advertising and tell them you will change your paperwork. You will tell people you're in Northport. You just gave out a platter's permit. If it was me, I wouldn't have gave that guy the plat until he made sure that they were calling it Northport. So you're complicit with the builder, but then you're complaining about the builder. Fact of the matter is, these people live in Northport, whether you want to believe it or not, but you have a Venice mailing address. I've been dealing with that for 30 years back in Illinois, where it's Barrington with a Northport, with a Hoffman Estates with a Barrington zip code, blah, blah, blah. That's all it is. Sorry. Oh, I got time?
Oh, you're time. Yep.
Oh, I can rant and rave some more? Good.
Go on, keep waving.
So anyways, I think the information part of this that you want to have is great, but you got to make sure you get the right information. And I understand when you guys run to the village or whoever does your appraisal, but that's not the fact. And if it's the old adage in real estate, location, location, location. And perception is reality for the people that have that perception. These people perceive that whether they were duped or whether they weren't duped. Hey, I know where I bought there. There's a freaking sign out there. Excuse my language. It says "Welcome to West Villages, Northport." If they didn't see it, that's their problem. But they are residents of Northport with a Venice mailing address. And as I said earlier, when someone asks me, I always say I live in Northport with a Venice zip code. And that's the fact. So hopefully everybody will get together and stop all this bickering and everything. And if anything, I would think it would be more...
Perfect.
Can I finish? Can I make one last statement?
I don't think I've ever seen it stop like that.
Me neither.
No, I think it would be well served if you did more to communicate with these guys and make them the Northport so they know it's Northport and they're part of Northport instead of trying to fight it.
Thank you very much. We appreciate that. And I think that we have really diligently tried to do that since 2010 at least, to incorporate West Villages and even particular residents into everything. So I know that the city has had annual events there at West Villages. West Villages is a huge part of city events as well. And I think that the record really needs to be set straight that while I appreciate the West Villages believing that they're a huge part of the tax base, they're a huge part of our growth, but I think maybe you ought to take a ride around Northport Estates and let's check out some of those houses, because that's a primary part of our tax base. The primary tax base. So let's start with can we get some sort of,
I have a couple of,
can we get some sort of consensus as to where to go from here? The letter, the workshop, a combination?
Motion if you want.
Okay, so if you want to go ahead with a motion, Vice Mayor, I just want to eliminate
Hanks have
combo.
something though? Okay.
I thought there was another card there.
Oh.
No, we're all done with cards.
Right, let me give this a try. I'll move to direct the city manager to communicate with the U.S. Postal Service to provide an update on the current and the future development of the West Villages area and inquire on their plans for the additional Northport zip code. I guess I'll make it two separate motions.
Yeah, okay. Anyone second that?
I'll second it.
Okay, so that is moved by Commissioner Yates, seconded by Commissioner McDowell. City Clerk, you have that?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, excellent. Is there any comments on that, Commissioner Yates?
No, I think that's where we have to get the ball rolling here, is to have those conversations and let's see where they're at. They said it was in their long-range plan, so.
Let's see where their plans are now.
Right.
Commissioner McDowell?
Nope.
Sorry.
Well, I was just going to say, from the numbers are of growth is there. So, from 2009, 328 homes to now 1,984. So the numbers are there as far as the homes, and that was one of the big things that was a problem for back then, was they said you didn't have the rooftops. And the population, 820 people back in 2009, currently 4,960. And the best thing that we can do is address this before there's even more population there. So, and even the post office recognized that back in 2010.
Yeah.
So now is the time to do it, to mitigate the impacts. And the other is for economic development purposes. Now is the time to do this because the town center is going to be coming soon, and the spring training facility. Now is the time to really get these things in motion and get them done, because there's more of an impact if it happens after the fact, after they're here. So I'll leave it at that.
Commissioner McDowell, you were the seconder, so you have.
I appreciate that we're going to get the information from the post office, because the data of that zip code is going to help Northport in the growth, and like Vice Mayor mentioned, of the economic development. It's going to help the city, including the West Villages, not just the city of Northport. It's going to help the residents in West Villages. And it's going to help them in ways that we can't even begin to imagine, because we have to use the statistical data that that zip code holds. And that's what's very important all the way around.
Commissioner Hanks?
Yeah, I think this is an important process that we need to go through. I don't personally think, and I don't know everybody here personally, but I think it's disingenuous to say that there's an inferiority complex when we're specifically talking about there's specific monies that the city will lose for infrastructure if Venice gets to claim the people. The population growth. And I'm sorry, but Venice is not putting into this city. This city's putting into this city.
Or West Villages, right?
Huh?
We're putting into West Villages.
Yes, absolutely.
Be clear about that.
So yeah, I think it's very feasible, and I think it should be reasonable to have a discussion, to get the information that is out there, and personally, I think the entire argument's moot. So it wouldn't be something I'd be arguing over, but that's me. I don't do
that. Commissioner Luke?
I might be a little different thinking and thought process on this than the majority of the residents probably. The only reason that I will consent to the motion of taking it to the United States Post Office is because they're the ones that make the final decision anyhow. I mean, so we can sit up here and talk, or anybody can talk all they want to, but it boils down to the federal government. And as I said, that is a improvement district. They are their own taxation, so the final say is going to be in the hands of the post office anyhow. So if you want to take it to them right now to hear what they have to say, then we'll take it now, because sooner or later it's going to be there anyhow.
Real quickly, City Attorney, we had some conversation earlier by some of our public comment about false advertising. And just let's be very clear, as far as I know, my dealings with the builder, as far as the website, I see now what the issue is, but when I went looking at houses in West Villages, they were always very open and honest that it was Northport. So it seems like there's some website information issues, as well as realtors who are kind of selling for the property owners that exist. How do we handle that? Is there a way, is there a legal action that you can take against these false advertisement claims?
If someone had been a victim of fraud or false advertisement, that person may have a private cause of action. They would have to meet whatever legal standards were required for the specific cause of action, and prove damages as well as far as that goes. I'm not aware of anything that the city as a governmental entity could do along those lines at this point without looking further. You know, the one thing that's very important that the city has to consider when we're talking about the actions of individuals, and individuals include not only people but also other entities and corporations, are, you know, the freedom of speech aspects and the constitutional protections. So that would be, if the city were to try to pass any type of regulation or something along those lines, we'd have to very carefully consider that from a legal perspective. But in response to what the public commenter specifically said about the city taking legal action, you know, with respect to these matters, there's nothing that comes to my mind that the city would be able to do.
Thank you.
Mayor, may I just clarify something really quick about the website that Commissioner McDowell pulled up? It is not an official West Villages website. It is
DeVosta Homes.
DeVosta Homes. Oh, okay. All right. I'm sorry. I thought it was a realtor's home.
And they are on it.
Yes.
Okay.
All right. Wonderful. Because I did, while we were up here, I went through all the.
No, I know.
Oh, and I made that clear. It was DeVosta Homes.
All right. Yeah. And so as going
Of Island
through
Walk.
all the links, even the Facebook page, thank you. While you were here, you posted, you know, our new mayor was already posted too. So, but I couldn't find anything on like the, you know, like the official West Villages. I just wanted to make sure.
Are you talking about the
So it's-
mywestvillages.com? Is that the site you went to?
Well, I went to the one that I felt was the legitimate website, which is
Well, I don't-
now I'm on Facebook, but yeah, I couldn't find anything on the.
Refresh it.
It would say that that it's between two city centers is what it would say. I found that.
Yeah, it's West Villages Land Partners LLP is the website I'm at. And I have a printout of it too, and actually on there is where they're
Yeah, that's the one.
promoting Venice all over it, so.
Well, maybe we can send a letter out to these Variety if they're even truly affiliated with West Villages or any of their partners. Let's find that out first before we go pointing fingers. And if anyone has any knowledge about this false advertisement, please send it to us. We are more than happy to receive any information that you all can contribute to us so that we can stop this and prevent this from the future. So with that, Vice Mayor.
I'll just do real quick. So, you know, I think a lot of it is about communication. So when we find these entities, let's, as a city, work to get those corrected, just as is happening right here in this meeting. So that's going to be important. But what the city attorney was saying, I think the people that have been sold something misleadingly, they can go after those realtors. They have the right, if I mean, that's something they can do. But the city, I think what she was saying, and that's what I'm trying to clarify, so they can do that. They can go after those retailers or
Potentially.
Right. But we as the city can't. Okay. And, you know, this is not uncommon. I mean, it does happen, as we heard somebody in public comment talk about. This happens all over the country.
Remember swampland in Florida?
Yeah.
They were selling it as regular land?
Right.
I mean,
but
this
as
has
far
gone
as
on
the
for
zip code issue, and I just want to share for the city manager too, in your conversations with the Postal Service, in 2016, Coral Springs finally got 2 zip codes for their city name. So this does happen. It's not uncommon, and it could be done. And so hopefully, you know, in conversations with the post office, we can bring those other situations up where it has been done.
Commissioner Luke, and then we're going to call for the vote so we can move on and get a break in before we go because it's getting late.
It is a mixed thing, the false advertising thing. I had a multiple number of emails come to me, some telling me that yes, they were told that it was Venice, some saying no, I understood that I was in Northport. So it wasn't consistent one way or the other. So it's not a broad thing, but it is sporadic and did happen. I'm very proud of my friends over at West Village District of Mattamy Home. This is a publication, and all the way through this publication that actually came out in the newspaper, it talks about the city government, what improved districts are, and you know, and it talks about Northport, not Venice. And they have done their very best from the beginning, you know, to be informative, to be a good partner. They're a city within a city, is what they are. And it's a perception that goes out, and we all have our way of perceiving what we hear or what we see, and And so a lot of that comes in, even though the law says one thing, how we perceive it and interpret it is another. And location, location, location. Some people don't care what the address says. They like what the improvement district is doing. They like the location of being near the beach, but in between some larger cities, but still, you know, in a smaller area. So location is just as important as perception. Thank you.
City Attorney, did you have anything else?
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to say, since there's been a little bit of conversation about any potential legal remedies that might be available to any parties from the city to homeowners or those shopping for a home, along with the phrase false advertising that's been mentioned by several different parties today. I want to make sure that we understand false advertising as a legal concept is a very specific thing, and it requires a very specific set of circumstances. And I would venture to say that anyone speaking, at least from the dais today, and using this phrase is not invoking that in a legal way with the specific allegations as such, but simply saying that there might be some confusing information that's been promoted.
Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, thank you, City Attorney. Okay, so in the interest of time, let's get this moving. We've had a motion on the floor by Vice Mayor, seconded by Commissioner McDowell, to send the letter off. If we can go ahead and vote.
Well, that was not to send the letter off, but
the
the way it was
the
stated.
city clerk has already said that she has what it was stated.
Do it again and make sure we
Yep.
have it exactly the way the recording's at.
Yep.
Thank you.
I already asked that, so that's why I. Okay, and that is unanimous. So now the second part, Vice Mayor.
Yeah, I'll move to have the city manager arrange a town hall meeting in the West Villages to update the residents on the area's growth and the impact of the city resources and basically the communication with the residents out there.
Second.
Okay. Any conversation on that? Great.
Yes.
Oh.
No, just the importance about addressing, proper addressing.
Commissioner Luke?
Nothing.
Commissioner McDowell?
I would like to see this town hall happen as quickly after the holidays as possible, since we have a lot of the snowbirds and part-time residents down here enjoying our nice sunshine and nice weather and not in 20 feet of snow, which is coming. So if we could do that during this season, I think that's very important. And if I need to make an amendment, I will go ahead and do that.
I don't think that it needs an amendment. I think the city manager can do it as quickly as humanly possible.
Right,
I
but
mean,
I'd like to take advantage of
just have that
this.
considered that they're seasonal and we'd like it done during
Yeah.
the season so there's more residents there. Okay, with that, let's go ahead and vote. Okay. And that is unanimous. All right, guys, it is 4:30. Oh, Commissioner McDowell?
I think I'll need to make a motion for this. I'd like to make a motion to direct the city manager to start an educational campaign about the West Villages area to help the citizens that are leaving and not hearing this part.
Yeah.
The importance in an educational way, whether it be through the city's website or through the social media, some kind of an educational campaign.
In conjunction with the West Villages newsletter.
Yeah, and with the West Villages newsletter and with the Currents.
Do we have a second?
This.
Second, Commissioner Hanks? Okay, so what Commissioner McDowell is having the city to send out some sort of an informational form of communication via paper and social media to update them on. Let's just clarify this. Is it to tell them they live in Northport, or what is it?
Educational campaign about the
I
city
just
of
don't know.
the city of Northport, and an educational campaign.
Oh, about the city of Northport. Okay,
Right.
thank you for clarifying that.
You're welcome.
Okay, so it's a information about the city of Northport, its form of government, kind of like the Currents. Now that makes sense.
And targeting the West Villages area.
Targeting specifically the West Villages,
And
and
how we
Commissioner
work together.
and Commissioner Hanks seconded that.
Isn't that what we're already doing, though?
I don't
City
think
Manager?
we're not targeting West Villages. That goes out to a sampling,
we can just do
right?
that with a
That's why I
City-
said social media and.
We can certainly get more information out to the West Villages, making them more aware of
What's going on?
what's going on, why we're doing this change, or requesting this change, what services the city has available. A portion of that, yes, is already being done with the North Report that we now call it. But if you guys want us to get more information out to them about those other items, we certainly can do that.
I think it's important, so I'm going to support this. Anything else? Any other questions? Okay, so we have a motion by Commissioner McDowell, seconded by Commissioner Hanks to get some more information out directly to West Village and their residents. City manager is aware of what we're looking for. We have one more vote we're looking for. Commissioner Luke. And that passes unanimously. All right, folks, it is 4:31 now. You did very well. We're going to take a 10-minute, real quick, and then we'll come back and bust through the rest of this and move on to our 5 o'clock meeting.